It's Friday, June 9th, 2023. Start off, as we typically do with our show segment. Patreon.com/Ozone Nightmare is one place you can go to support the show. You can also go into the show homepage, and you will find at the very bottom of the list, I believe it is the last one, you will see the PayPal icon. You can donate through there as well. In that same list of slightly rounded rectangles, squares, you will also see a little squat book icon with a little bookmark coming out of it. That will take you to Lando's Amazon author page where you can buy his books. You will see a skull that will take you to the Linktree for me. I also put it in the show notes that has all the different stuff. And I've been adding things to the Threadless shop. I think I've said that a couple times. Now, I haven't added anything to the Zazzle store in a while because I don't think people really use that much anymore. But if anybody wants something in there, says, oh, there was something in there and it disappeared, because they retire things when nobody buys them, which kind of annoys me, because it just assumes that everybody's selling stuff all the time. So I used to go in there and periodically just refresh it, but I don't think anybody's buying anything in there. I don't think people are buying that type of stuff anyway. I love merch, but I know not a lot of people do. I'm a addict to mugs and stickers and stuff, but not everybody is. So if there's something that was there and you've been meaning to buy it and it's just been missing, it's probably actually there. It's just hidden. So if you want it, I can just basically go in there and say reactivate. It's no problem. And that's it. Oh, and Ozone, the code, Ozone, to my knowledge, still will get you 2 months free podcasting with Libsyn. I should actually email them and make sure that's still active, but I never got one saying it expired. So I just keep assuming. That's also in the show notes, too. So I'll verify, but as far as I know, that works. So thereth end the Shillith segment.
Yeah.
I don't have... Oh, wait. I had an opener. What did I have? Oh, I want to bring something to the audience attention, and perhaps yours. You may already know who this person is. We got an email, and I apologize, Mike, because I believe this was from Mike. I'm going to check right now. I've been meaning to bring this up in every friggin' show, and I keep forgetting because I wanted to save it for the show because I thought Lando would appreciate it too. There is a artist who had something like 1,200 of her works were discovered in a country house by a farmer in 86. The artist's name is, I'm sorry, I have to expand the link, is Hilma Klint, Klint. She was born in the 1860s, and I'm trying to remember what started her. Her art is wild. I love it.
Some of it, some of it I like. Some of them, I mean, for the time period though, it's wild that she was creating this.
Well, this is the interesting thing is the backstory to this artwork is she was alive.
Swedish artist and mystic.
Yeah, well, basically mystic because from what I understand, it's not really mystic the way we traditionally think.
She's one of the first abstract artists known in Western art history. Yeah, that makes sense. Because I looked at it, and the first thing I thought was, that looks like abstract art. But when does abstract art really happen? Yeah.
What spurred this was X-rays were invented, and they started seeing into things, and she started thinking, well, wait, does that mean there are other realities and other dimensions? which is a scientific gateway into mysticism, and it makes complete sense. And then she just went crazy with this stuff and just was painting and painting and painting. But a lot of it apparently was stuck in a house and nobody knew about it, even though she predated a lot of the people who are famous for abstract painting. Some of the big names, she actually was there before them, but wasn't as well known. So I will put a link to, I think there's a Wikipedia on it. But I thought that was wild. So I apologize, Mike, because I wanted to bring it up so that Lando would experience it, real time. Because, yeah, I'm the same. I don't necessarily love all of her stuff, but the story makes it better. It's one of those things where the story enhances.
I like her smaller ones more than her bigger ones.
A lot of it looks like stuff that would be covers to synthwave albums now. That's what I mean. That's what it looks like to me.
Yes, it would.
But it's an interesting story because I like the idea that a scientific discovery, because her family's background was science. I think her father was a mathematician. I don't remember what the mother did, but there was a scientific background that led to this.
But science and art lend a lot to each
other.
Oh,
no, they do. But that's what I like about it. It's a neat backstory, and it's to artwork that is very interesting. And she does also
more of it.
Yeah, she does have some very like more of still life type painting, landscape type stuff. But then once the X-rays were founded, that kind of transformed her relationship with art, which is fascinating. So sorry, Mike, you sent me that email a long time ago, and I kept forgetting about it. Only because there was a slight gap where Lando didn't have an opener. Did I go, oh yeah, that email? So
I do like how they started X-raying the canvases of certain like masters, like master painters, and discovering like entire previous versions or like other paintings underneath
where they covered it up or changed something or whatever. Yeah.
And it's funny because everyone's sitting there going, well, Jesus Christ, there's a classic under this classic. What do you do with that? And you're like, nothing. He painted over it. You're done.
Did you see these morons who are getting machines to fill in the surroundings of art? These idiots.
Yeah.
Like, looks like it's behind the Mona Lisa. Let's look.
No. So this is what's weird. So they did that with the girl with the pearl earring. I know that they did that one, right? Now, I went to, what's that guy's name who painted that?
Hold on. Man, I can't ever remember.
I know. But I went to his home.
Vermeer.
Vermeer. Okay, so I went to the
Vermeer. Is it supposed to be Vermeer? Is
the
that how you're supposed to say
museum? Whatever. We'll just say it's sure. Bob as far as I'm concerned. Him.
Johannes
Vermeer.
Good old Bob V.
Vermeer. I like Vermeer though. Vermeer.
Wait, his name is Johann? Johnny V.
Yeah, it's Johannes. Johannes or Johannes.
Yeah, it's the show title is now Johnny V. Thanks, we're done.
Johnny V. So I went to his house. That's a museum, right? And when you see
Johnny
this house,
museum.
Yeah, the Johnny V Museum. And when you walk around his house, you get a sense of the space that he was painting in, right? And it's not a huge space. So what was funny to me was they gave that AI that thing to make the environment around the girl with the pearl earring, right? And it made this like massive environment. And the thing was, having seen Vermeer's surroundings, which were much smaller and closer, I laughed because it was an utterly incorrect prediction of what the rest of the environment would look like. It did not take his actual home into account at all. So it made me sit there and wonder, what is the point of this abstraction? Are you just saying, like, it's not meant to be an accurate abstraction. So really it's just kind of like it's like a lot of the AI stuff has kind of been like a funny art trick. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, wouldn't it be cool if we did A? And you're like, yeah, but it doesn't change anything. Like what they did with the girl with the pearl earring, it doesn't change the painting to me. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't make it better. It doesn't make it worse. It doesn't change anything. It's just an interesting little, oh, look. And it could have been an AI that did it. It could have been some asshole who just felt like painting the environment around the painting. You know what I mean? But it didn't do anything for it. So I don't get angry about it. I just think it's kind of like a funny, flippant thing because it was so wrong. Now I've been to the Vermeer Museum, so like I have more of a sense of the space than maybe other people who've never been there. And beyond that, like, what do I care about what the rest of the environment looks like? If anything, an artist casts their narrow eye on something and elevates it. And you brought a computer in to almost devalue the narrow eye of the artist. So in that respect, it's also very funny because, like, you're essentially trying to decommission the importance of the artist's perspective. Like, do you know that painting that what's his name? Is the guy who painted one of the kings. And he painted the king's family, but then what he did was the whole thing is in a mirror. So he painted himself into the painting as well. It's like this very funny trick where basically he got himself into a picture of the royal family, right? And it's like, what is an AI going to do with that? It's already a play on the perspective of everything. And what makes it amusing is that a peasant artist got himself into a portrait with a king and his family. You know what I mean? Like, so yeah, I'm getting less and less annoyed about the whole AI thing because I feel more and more like it's becoming a forgettable cliche. Like
you're right. That is part of it. What I don't get annoyed at the technology. I haven't been the whole time. I'm not scared of it. I'm neither enthralled with it. It's the people. It's these people who think that suddenly they're artists because they typed in a couple of words. I'm sorry, you're not. I do love though that the Mona Lisa one inserted an American Northwest background behind her because that's just hysterical. And the person knew so little that they didn't notice that. That is beautiful. That you were so clueless that you didn't know what that was.
That's the nature of it. That's the nature of it with art, you know, in general, is that it, I'm not going to say who is and who isn't an artist because I have noted of late that whenever I find myself around artistic people, I don't feel very artsy. I've become very friendly with my tattooist. And you know how hard it is for me to get friendly with people. So I've become very friendly with my tattooist, and he's a really artsy guy. And when I'm around him, I don't feel like an artsy guy. And it's funny because he considers me to be a very artsy guy, but I'm like, but I don't create art. I write, and I almost don't consider. See, the other thing, I don't feel like writing is very art. I feel like it's more. I don't know. It just feels more.
I know what you're saying. But artists do not have to create art the way you're talking about. An artist is somebody who is
I know it.
Creative work.
But that's what I've come. Yeah, and listen, first off, I'm not self-conscious about it. It is what it is. It's just a weird feeling. But beyond that, my whole thing is I think any creativity is great in the community. And like I was recently saying to my tattooist this idea that when it comes to creativity and to art, I don't get jealous. I don't when you meet somebody who's really good and you're like, holy shit, you're really good. There's people who get jealous. There's people who get bitter. We know this. There's always people that were like, fuck that guy for being so good. Whereas my whole mindset with creativity is, the rising tide lifts all ships. So with this whole AI thing, you know what? I feel like there might be people out there who want to create something and who don't have the ability to create. And if AI lends them a tool that can allow them to create something of what's in their mind, then good on them. I mean, what makes people assholes is what they then do with the art on the other end. Do you know what I mean? Like,
well, sort of, but there is a not a danger. There is a trap in there.
Yeah.
Because I'm largely in agreement on, hey, I don't care how you create, but there is
no, but here, let me give you an example of what I'm talking about so you can see what I mean. Like we'll bring Coop into this because he hates AI, right? I love Coop's work. Coop's work is great. If somebody who has a different vision of Coop's Devils starts making Coop girls with AI, right? But not selling them, just doing it for their own enjoyment and pleasure, right? That's fine. In my point of view,
I agree totally.
It's
it's something you're doing for yourself, and you're not saying you're an artist.
Yeah, who cares? For yourself and for your friends, and you all laugh about it, and you're like, "Hey, check this out," right?
Yeah, nothing wrong with that. There never has been.
If you then try to slap that on T-shirts and stickers and sell it, now you're an asshole.
Right.
Now it's wrong.
Right.
Because
but also,
that's not necessarily your art. You're using somebody else's. But I mean, I don't know. Like that, I think that to be asshole.
No, it is. Absolutely, it is. People have done it by just carbon copying his work. There's lots of, he will post about people who just steal his stuff. So absolutely, no, that's not, you think it, that is being a complete scumbag.
Yeah.
The thing that I think is detrimental, that's the word I want to use for it. The thing that I think is detrimental is that there is already this conflation between what somebody who generates something of their own mind and a machine-generated image is. Because no matter what, that machine-generated image is not what's in your mind. Now, can it get you close to it for purposes of entertainment or whatever? Sure. Who cares? That's fine. And some people have no desire to be artists. They just want to make a funny image to put on Instagram. That's fine. That's fine. I don't have any problem with that. I think that's
I discovered you know how usually when you think of an image, it's already out there? Like there's nothing
some
original.
Variation, yes. Some variation is typically out there, yeah.
I was having a conversation with some people about that idea, about how if you can think of it, it's already out there, right? And I said, yeah, if you want like a picture of the Virgin Mary scissoring with the Statue of Liberty, I'm sure somebody's already done that. And you know what I discovered? Nobody on the internet has drawn the Virgin Mary.
Nobody on the internet has done it. I
guarantee
the internet, that's been done.
But I know, but normally you can find anything that comes out of your mouth. You're like, oh, somebody's done it. And usually they have. Because there's lots of variations on the Statue of Liberty is a whore. She's fucked everybody. But not the Virgin Mary. I mean, there's a great, the Atlantic had a great image of her Frenching the Lady Liberty, which is a beautiful image. But beyond that, it's like, no, it's funny because normally it's all out there, and then you come up with an idea and it's not there, and you're like, shit, that surprises the hell out of me because normally, it's all been drawn. It's all been, but you're right. It's the filter of your mind. And the problem though, is that there are people who lack the tools to even approach what's in their mind. And I get this really bad. I write, and when I write, I try to describe what's in my head to the most of my ability. But I also have to accept that the act of literature, it's not about what's in my head. It's about what my words trigger in your head. Because
sure,
at the end of the day, it's the enjoyment you have of the words coaxing imagery in your mind. And I can be as careful as I want with my words, but I'm not in control necessarily of the images that you conjure. Right? This is why I'm always fascinated by what characters look like to different people. I mean, you and I had that big conversation about the book God's War and how you changed. You made one of the characters black to white, not on a racial level, but just because the personality of the character triggered an actor in your mind, and you just kept saying, was it Jared Leto? You kept saying it as Jared Leto.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, something like that. And I was like, oh, interesting. And you couldn't shake it.
Which is one of my default asshole personas, just so everybody's clear.
He pops up on a lot of books.
He does.
So, but it's imagery. It's the imagery, is what you're playing with. Whereas with art, I find that with art, you're very much trying to actualize, unless it's like some kind of over stylized element that you do. A lot of people are trying to actualize the image in their minds. And you are always limited by the scale of your ability. You know? So if
but what I'm talking about
provides...
is you wouldn't go to ChatGPT and you wouldn't put a prompt in saying, I want you to write a science fiction space opera with 3 characters that are in a love triangle in the style of Ernest Hemingway, and you wouldn't take that output and say, aha, I'm a writer.
Hold on. Is that how it works?
Well, yeah, you can do it like that. I mean, that's one way. Yes, you can have it write you something like that. Yeah. Yeah, that's what's called. That's what people call themselves now. Prompt writers. Yeah.
I guess my problem with that is like, what's the fun in that?
Well, okay.
Like,
but that's a separate thing. Because let me rephrase it.
No.
Somebody says, you know what? I want you to write a space opera where 3 lesbian vampires from Venus are, in a love triangle and have
if you're trying to make porn for yourself, that's a whole other matter. But
that's what I'm saying. That's the fun. Yeah, that's how you can make fun.
Let me roll it out. Let me roll it out to you like this. When I write, my brain goes someplace else. My brain goes to these places, these rooms, these impossible locations. You know this about me. I can't write standing up because I lose track of my body. It's a big joke my wife has. Where I do everything else at a standing desk, but I have to write sitting down because I literally kind of just forget about my mortal form. And when I write, I'm there. I'm in the room. I'm in this space. Like mentally, I am utterly there, and I am. It's so much fun. I mean, I hate it too because sometimes you can't quite get the words out right. You can't quite describe it, or you realize there's things you forgot to. I mean, it's just the same way if you're telling someone a story about something happened, and you're like, "Oh shit!" This happens all the time with you. You're like, "Oh shit! I forgot this detail." But that's what revision is for. And I've found that I love revision even more now because I get to go into these environments and I get to like kind of roll forward and roll back, like the rewind on like a 3-dimensional image on my mind. I love it. I don't understand why anybody would bypass the joy of spending time in those environments. I thought the whole point of it was to go to you read because you want to spend time in these environments, right? You want to go on these adventures. You want to feel, the sun of the planet of Arrakis. You want to feel like you've been there. You want the memories of having been Muad'Dib, right? What is the point of having something else do it for you? I figured that writing was the next level. Rather than have the memories of, being Muad'Dib, you could live the present day moment of creation, watching Muad'Dib exist, following a character through a story and experiencing almost in real time their existence. So this is why I guess the AI writing thing feels so, I don't know, like pointless to me, because it's like, this is like hiring a robot to fuck your wife, right? You're like, well, my wife needs to be fucked really well, and I'm going to hire this robot to do it because it does a really good job. And I find a lot of joy from this robot fucking my wife rather than me, right? But you're like, yeah, but don't you want to fuck your wife? And you're like, oh, I do. But I'd rather have the robot do it because it really needs to be done. It needs to be a good job. And I'm kind of like, yeah, but I want to fuck my wife. Why would I hire a robot to fuck my wife? Like, it just feels such a weird alien concept. And maybe it's patched into the capitalist mindset where it's like, a lot of people want to be J.K. Rowling. They don't want to have to go through the process of becoming J.K. Rowling. You know what I mean? Or Stephen King or any author that you would buy or adore. Nobody wants to go through the process and the unsexy parts of being a writer. They want to just be like, it's the whole instant gratification. I'm going to write, a paragraph into this program. It's going to deliver me a bestseller, and I'm going to be Dan Brown, and everyone's going to want to interview me, and they're going to want movie rights, and it's like everyone just wants to skip to the fame and not actually go through the process of creation. Yeah. And I would argue that if you are in it for the ends, then yeah, I guess you're probably not an artist. No. In the same respect as me or you.
But yeah, it's Tetsuo taking the drugs in the book, not in the movie. The movie skips that, but in the book, that's a very prominent thing about how him taking those drugs is a shortcut that is ultimately detrimental. Like I said, I don't care about people who do it for entertainment. You do whatever you want to entertain yourself, or if you just think it's funny.
Yeah.
But a lot of people are saying, look at what I have created. No, you didn't. I'm sorry. But even if we don't care about the process, and I agree, some people don't, you didn't create it. A machine stitched it together from other people's ideas.
You know what? That's like a It's like somebody who hired a contractor to build a house going, look what I've built. And
that's my exact point. That's why I said you wouldn't. You might be stuck, and this is perfectly valid. People do this, and there's nothing wrong with it, because artists, like, I will look at a reference. I don't know. I can't draw a horse out of my memory. Can't do it. Most animals I can't do. So if somebody says, could you draw me a horse? I'll sure. And I will pull up a picture of a horse and go, okay, that's what I'm going to base it on. I'll sketch. You saw the guy I did on the horse. That wasn't a great drawing because I don't draw people on horses all that much. But I was using a reference, and it was the first time I tried it, and it's very obvious that it's the first time I tried it. So I didn't try to do that. If I'd done it from memory, believe me, it probably would have been a better cover because you would not have had any idea what the hell it was. But
it would have been more like an acid western,
yes. It'd be El Topo as opposed to Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. But that's the thing where I look at it and I think that's bad, because not bad, and there's an asshole bad and there's it's just sad bad. The asshole bad is I am an artist because I put prompts in. No, you're not. Stop it. That's separate. That's Elon Musk material. But I also think, oh man, they're going to be kids who are raised doing this stuff, and that will be their shortcut. They'll never, or they may never, be able to develop their own style, their own way of doing stuff, which comes from trial and error.
But you're flirting with almost like techno people who never actually create. There are techno artists who only ever use other people's sounds, but at least they create a new rhythm. Maybe that's what it is. That's what makes it different. Is that with techno, you're taking other sounds, but at least you're creating your own rhythms
or sampling.
And your own patterns.
There's sampling where you tell that they're taking something and they're making something new. And then there's Vanilla Ice. Do you want to be Vanilla Ice? Do you? I don't think you do.
If you used AI to sample things visually, but then rearranged it in a new pattern, that's a whole other matter. Is that people aren't doing that. It's a shortcut. It's a shortcut to an end product. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
And like I said, there's parts of it that I find very amusing, but I find it amusing on like, a fair. Like I've gone to a fair and there's been a booth where I can do a funny AI thing, and I'm like, look at this funny thing that I did, and it's like, and I think that people are taken by the Skynet like possibility. Like, you don't think that there's a movie studio out there going, we can use AI to make a movie and we'll make millions of dollars and we can just pay ourselves our billions.
Oh, well, that's what the strike is over. That's what the strike is partially that's going on right now, is partially because they're saying you cannot, this is not a replacement, and they will. I mean, the face replacement stuff is already there.
The writing already is not that great. Come on. You think AI is going to make it better?
Well,
my son just got old enough to start picking up inconsistencies in movies.
Oh, no.
And hold on. So he's started to pick up inconsistencies in storytelling, and he's really into Star Wars right now, right? And he's watched Clone Wars, and he's watched like the Bad Batch, and he's putting all the movies in order in his mind now, which is great because he didn't watch them in order necessarily. Like, he watched a lot of the shows out of place, but he's putting them all in order, and he just figured out like things why isn't Ahsoka Tano never mentioned in what do you call it, Revenge of the Sith? And I'm like, well, it's because she was created afterwards, and they just kind of shoehorned her in. That's not a big deal. But then other stuff like, why didn't Obi-Wan kill Darth Vader the first time when he was Anakin? He beat him, and I'm like, yeah, but he couldn't because he
has to be alive. He has to be alive later.
He has to be alive, right? But then the second time they meet up in the Obi-Wan show, he still doesn't kill him. And my son was like, yeah, but by that time, he's a mass murderer. Like, he's killed all these people. They're like, why can't Obi-Wan do it? And I'm like, it's because they need him to be alive for New Hope. That's why. And then in New Hope, Obi-Wan is old and can't beat him anymore and just decides to turn into a ghost. And it's funny because my son was like, well, that logic is awful. And like, he actively looks down on Obi-Wan as a character now because of those plot holes that he just figured out, which is that Obi-Wan has had the opportunity to save the galaxy 2 times. And both times, like, I'll give Obi-Wan the first one. Anakin was on fire, he was on the side of the lava thing, and And Obi-Wan didn't think he was going to live anyway, and he was overwhelmed with emotion. Anakin and him were so close. I take that. But the second time around, this is why the problem with creating an Obi-Wan show. The second time around, you could have kicked his ass. You should have kicked his ass. He's killed everybody. Like, this is no longer a question of what will you become. This is a post-Holocaust Hitler. And you're sitting there going, but we were so close, man. Me and Adolf, like, we were just so close. I don't think I could do this. Like, and you're like, yeah, but he is one of the galaxy's most incredible mass murderers. What is wrong with you? So my son is starting to pick up these plot holes, and the way that they've had to tap dance to kind of try and like tap dance around them or fill them in, but he's starting to pick them up and rationalize and be like, wait a minute, that's awful. Like, doesn't that mean this? And I'm like, dude, I'm real sorry. I was like, because storytelling is allowed to get a lot worse for you. Especially since we're watching Doctor Who. And Doctor Who is like, I kept going, well, sometimes you got to let these things go for the overall story arc. And he's like, really? I'm like, that, or you're not going to watch anything. Like, sorry. There's always going to be inconsistencies. There's a lot of bad storytelling out there. Doctor Who, listen, I love Doctor Who, but there is a lot bad Doctor Who. And it's not the actors' faults necessarily. They but listen, the writing's just not that great. And, going to a larger problem, the more fast food nation dumbed down as a society we become, the caliber of writing is going to get worse. Because unfortunately, writing is one of the... You can be an illiterate painter and be one of the most incredible painters in the world, right? You can be a largely uneducated photographer and be an incredible photographer. But if you don't get taught how to write in school, there's going to be some problems with your writing. You need the basics, at least. I mean, would you agree, Joe?
Oh yeah, yes, that's what I mean about. I think it's sad that it's going to be detrimental to some people to not know the basics and to take shortcuts, and then there's going to be a point where that tool can't. I mean, there's an assumption it's going to be able to do everything for everybody, but we of course know that's not true. And there's also the problem where, what if this tool that you've used suddenly starts charging 4 times what it used to, and you can't use it anymore? Now you have nothing.
Listen. This is, I mean, honestly, with the chat, whatever thing, it's a death of grammar, because what happens if it starts writing weird shit and you don't know grammar well enough to be like, is that wrong? I don't know if it's wrong. I mean, this is how you lose the narrative. I mean,
okay, but we have to be careful not to demonize the whole thing either. That's why I say I want to be very specific in my criticisms, because here's the other side of it.
I'm not demonizing
what if they were able
but if you use a crutch all the time...
Yeah, yes, that I totally agree. Yes, that aspect I think is bad. I think people who think that they are writers or creators when the entirety of their creative process relies on one of these tools, I'm sorry, but you're not. And there's going to be a point where one of two things happens. One, you're going to run out of what this tool can do for you, because the other thing is it outputs all the same stuff. So you're going to start looking like everybody else and sounding like and whatevering like everybody else. You can tell when these things create.
Yeah, the only thing that would change that, and this is like Google. So my wife and I always joke around about how I'm really good at finding things on Google. I'm really good at finding things on Google. And the joke is it's all about the words, because Google is a simple system. You're using this. You have to put in the right combination of words. That's all it is. This is not a rare ability to me. This is just an ability that certain people have more so than others. And me being a writer and having a background, a very heavy background in English literature and writing, all this stuff, I'm really good at figuring out the combinations of words to find the things that I specifically want to find, especially with like imagery, right? I wonder if this is going to be what ends up happening with these chat programs. Is it's going to be how clever and precise you are in describing what you want this program to do that ends up putting the best product out. And if anything, you start having this group of like, if you're a moron and you've got a chat AI system, right? I'm sure you're not going to put out exactly an amazing work of art. But if you gave someone who had like a Stephen King level of skill the ability to work with an AI system like this, they might produce some really fascinating shit. Especially when like they're willing to pump in a certain amount. You know, like I don't know enough about the software to know that the I really should check it out just for that sake alone. But like, how much data do you need to put in?
The people will do multiple levels of refinement and refinement and refinement and refinement. So you dial it in, but ultimately it all still kind of looks the same. There is a sameness because, to your point about a Google search, you know, it is all about the words, but if nobody's got a public version of the Statue of Liberty scissoring the Virgin Mary, it ain't coming up.
You're not going to find it, yeah.
It ain't, yeah. Exactly. And that's the thing, is this stuff is all sourcing the same stuff. And, as people have pointed out, eventually, it's going to be sourcing
And if anybody finds a picture of the Statue of Liberty scissoring
send
the
it.
Virgin
Send
Mary,
it in immediately. Yes.
By all means, send it in, yeah.
Yes, I will send that idea to Coop as a suggestion. I'll say, you know what?
God.
My co-host looked for this and couldn't find it. Would you like to maybe try your hand at it?
Oh, and I'm sure his would be fantastic.
I'm sure it would.
Oh, I would buy so many copies of that. I mean, he's almost there.
He is. Yeah, I mean, he's already done the nuns and everything else, and the devil girls and the nuns. So he is mostly there. But yeah, I will run that by him over on Blue Sky because that's still small. No, that's still small enough. He'll look at it. I know it. So.
But it's that's exactly the bigger problem. And the thing is, you never know how these things are going to evolve and where they're going to be applied. This is kind of the amusing aspect of technology and art. You don't know what's going to become a new wave in art. You don't know what is going to become that time period. You know, like we look back and we're like, oh, I'm trying to think like the oh jeez, I can't think of any art movements now. I can see their art in my mind, but like you know the abstract, the abstract, the impressionists. You don't know at the time what anything is going to be because Van Gogh was a broke ass artist living in the backcountry that nobody gave a shit about, and his paintings go for billions, right?
Right.
You don't know what's going to happen. So, no. and technology is the same way.
I'm not for banishing it either because, to your point about people who don't have the ability, let's say there's somebody with muscular dystrophy who has a very creative mind but cannot control. Is that muscular dystrophy? Is that where you somewhat lose the ability to like find hand-eye?
Yes, you lose.
Okay, I don't want to mix my diseases up.
That's one of the many. Yeah.
But let's say somebody's afflicted by something, nerve damage, whatever, car accident. Who cares? Stephen Hawking, where they cannot move their extremities, but they have the vision. I want that person to be able to make something. So I'm not saying destroy it like these people are saying you should ban it. No, come on, don't do that. The tool, it's a hammer. A hammer can build a house. It can smash a skull in. Let's not destroy the tool. Let's look at how people are misusing or abusing the tool. Because that's really where the thing is.
What you're talking about is you can provide people a machete, but somebody will turn it into a scalpel.
Exactly.
At some point.
Yes. There are very few tools that have one express purpose of something detrimental. Say a gun.
And that's what I was getting to. That in the same way that you don't know what's going to become an art movement, in technology, you never know what's going to become the thing. Because years back, fucking holograms. Holograms were the thing, man. Everything's going to be a hologram, and then it ended up being vaporware, and it was something else. And there's always like this, what's the hot technology? Oh, we're going to use this, and it's going to be amazing. And you don't know how that ends up being really important in the long run, where like you find out that technology then got used for something that you weren't expecting it to be used for.
I'll give you a concrete example of myself.
Yeah.
I'll give you a direct one of why these things should exist. I've been working on an image of Spiral for a while now, the six-armed woman from the X-Men comics, because I love Spiral. I think she's great. And one thing I didn't realize until I started doing my illustration of her, which is going to take forever because I keep backburnering it, but I like where it is. That's why I'm backburning it. I don't want to screw it up. Is most artists drew her in a way that is so horrific. And I don't think they realized it. But if you actually look...
The 80s?
No. I'm talking... Yeah, Spiral. Look up images of her, and what I'm talking about is the anatomy. most artists, including Art Adams, which I hate to say.
Okay, let me make this clear. It's because they were trying as hard as they could to get all the hardcore fuck imagery in.
No, it's not that. It's not that.
6 arms.
No, I'm talking about, look where her arms are. Look up any image. Just look up Spiral X-Men in your image search.
Yeah, no, I've got it.
Okay, look at where the arm shoulders are.
They all come out of the same shoulder post.
Could you imagine what that person looks like when she turns sideways? You notice there's not many images of her sideways.
Hold on. What you need to do is go find the Uncanny X-Men Marvel Legends Retro Collection Marvel Spiral action figure.
Oh, hold on.
And that will show you a proper execution of the character.
Let's take a look. What's it called? Marvel Legends?
So the Uncanny X-Men Marvel Legends Retro Collection Marvel Spiral.
Oh, okay. No, that's not the Legends one.
You want me to send you the link?
Yeah, send to me. Yeah, send to me. Because I'm finding lots.
Actually, you know what? Go to Big Bad Toy Store. They have it.
Oh, all right, sure.
Big Bad Toy Store, and type in, was it Marvel Legends Spiral?
I'm there.
And that should bring it up for you.
Let's see, Marvel Legends Spiral. Let's take a look. Oh yeah, here it is. Uncanny, yes, Retro Collection. There
you go. One shoulder. Okay, so one shoulder on top, one shoulder on the bottom, and then there's a shoulder towards the back, kind of between them.
That's fascinating. Even this one doesn't show her from the side because they must realize how bad it looks. It does not. Look, there's nothing from the side.
Hold on. Let me see if I can find it.
I agree. It shows what you're talking about.
There isn't like a 360 of it?
Nope. Not on their site. Let me see if anybody has actually posted. I'm fascinated because I can't find anybody who's drawn it or shows it.
Oh, I got it. I got it.
Where'd you find it?
Oh, no. This is a terrible version. This is a figure that somebody made.
Yeah, I was going to say. I'm talking about
very
an actual,
Nightmare Fuel.
Yeah, a licensed one. So I'm looking at that for that figure in just general image search. Nothing from the side.
No, it's probably very frightening looking from the side.
Yeah. So I did it where the arms are sequential. They're stacked. But what I thought of doing is
that's very frightening.
You know what? It's not as bad as you think. I mean, she has a long torso, certainly. I
just figured with a character like Spiral, basically you'd have kind of what that action figure did, which is the idea of you've got a shoulder slightly forward, a slightly lower shoulder slightly back, and then the shoulder underneath slightly. So like you kind of pivots forward and back.
No, you're right. That's what almost every artist does. There's only I've seen one or two others who did it like I did it. Who did the stack, the sequential, with them all up to down, but not many. Yeah. Most do it the way you're talking about. And
something that might. I think it's a side image.
Okay,
it's like kind of on the angle, but it's the action figure.
But it's not a profile. There are no profiles of these figures.
Well, of course it's because it's gonna be fucking weird looking, man. She's a mutant.
That's what I'm saying. So for that, I wouldn't mind because I did it differently than most of these people did.
Yeah,
that's where I was like, maybe I'll have it generate an image of a woman with 3 shoulders that go down in a series. And it would be interesting to see if it, just to see what the, if I got it right, because I kind of guessed at it. I'll tell you what I did.
I would not want to.
I have a 3D poser program on the iPad, and I took 3 female models, and I basically just took the same one, moved the arms, and then moved it down and looked at that because that was the closest I could get to what was in my head.
Yeah.
I don't know that that's not, but here's the thing: when she turns sideways, it's going to look less weird than that tri-shoulder clump.
I mean, she must have a really hard time sleeping. I mean, if she doesn't sleep on her back, she's fucked.
This is what I'm saying. I get why they did it, but at the same time, and I know they're going to say, well, you're putting reality into an X-Men comic, man. What's wrong with you? I agree, but I do tend to think this way.
Hey, listen, sometimes that's the most fun.
And also, if you look at a female body, it's not like you would have to really stretch a torso that much to accommodate 2 extra arms. You could just make a long torso. That seems more natural than a hunchbackish set of muscles and shoulders in the back. Because, I mean, when she's standing there with her arms just hanging down, oh, God.
She's basically got a double top shoulder with another shoulder coming out.
Yeah, and her arms can only go so far back, right? I mean, they would start pinching each. I didn't have to think about it. I'm sorry. It's Cronenberg type shit. It's Cronenberg stuff.
Oh, it is. So. Yeah, but so much of this stuff is kind of Cronenbergish. I mean,
but that's where somebody who spent years would make something.
She was a scary ass character too.
Oh, there is a beautiful. When I was looking, because at first I was going to use the same armor as the 90s version, but then I realized I didn't like it, the samurai helmet, all that stuff. But there is a magnificent illustration. And I remember this. I remember the comic. It's one of the best images that's ever been drawn in terms of conveying an angry character. Here, I'm going to send it to you. I mean, this is so beautifully rendered. I'm going to send you this right now. I remember this panel.
Oh, my God.
What? Did you find porn of it already?
Oh, okay.
Look at that.
Okay. I can send this to you.
Sure, send it to me.
Hold on. Oh, wow. That's evil.
Is that not fantastic? And see what he did? He used the hair to cover the shoulders, which is smart.
I am the time dancer of death.
Isn't that awesome? I love Spiral. She's great.
Okay, so I was curious if the hentai people had any luck with this character.
Well, of course, she could jerk off 6 people at once.
No. This image is very porny, but I'm going to send it to you because what I want you to look at, copy image, I want you to look at the shoulders because this is a back view, and there's some interesting shit going on with these shoulders.
Okay, I'm curious.
Ignore. And don't worry, it's not. It's. This is basically like Hustler level. But look at the shoulders. The person who did this had to think about the musculature of the shoulders.
If you look, they did somewhat of a stacked version. See, it's not.
They did, yeah. Because it's the only way for her to have a normal-ish back.
Right.
Yes. So sorry, I had to check because
that's
sometimes
actually,
you find
whoever made that is actually a good artist. That's a good painting.
It's weird sometimes when you find like really smutty
that's like Travis Charest type stuff or like Adam Hughes.
I know, but that's what I mean is when you find
who did that? Does
really
that have an artist
smutty
name?
art on. No, it does not.
That's too bad because actually, pornography aside, that's a good image. Like that's a good. That person's probably making some money doing stuff like that.
I know, but what's
I'd
funny
put that
about
up as in a frame in my house if I was into that stuff.
But that's what I mean. Like you find these smutty artists who are incredible, and then you're like, you must do this for a living, and then you find out that they're like, an accountant or something.
Oh no! Somebody like this on the internet is going to make money.
You think you?
Somebody who's doing this on the internet is going to make money.
But they really had to think about the body on that.
Yes. This person, they may not be making money on a public website selling prints. They're making their money somewhere. You put this on something and say, I will do a commission of whatever character you want, doing whatever you want.
Holy shit. The actual image is huge too. It's a 1400 by 2000.
Yeah.
No, not the one I sent you. Yeah, that's a professional of somebody. Is there an artist? Oh, Thirstastic. That's what it is. That's a Patreon. Thirstastic.
Uh-huh.
I'm curious now.
Shall we look at how much money they make if they put it publicly? Let's take it. Hold on. I'm getting there. The tagline. Oh, this person. Creating art that is inappropriate for the typical workplace.
Oh my God. This guy's art is incredible.
430 patrons is all I'm saying.
Wow.
And the only level they've got is $5. Do the math. A month.
Oh my God.
I told you, right? As soon as you said that, I'm like, this guy, this, I don't know, actually it may not be a guy. This person is making money.
Oh my Lord. They're making that much.
Yes. Let's just do the quick math on it.
Man. That is hilarious. I didn't even think to track that shit down, but
now,
you are right.
By the way.
Yeah.
At a minimum, because with these, you can join at the level and then say, no, I want to give you more. I guarantee people are. That is $2,000 a month just from this.
Oh my god! I guess art does pay on some level. When you go for that human level that people want.
That's what I'm saying. This is not going to hang in a gallery. Well, they hang in some galleries, but this is not going to be next to a Rembrandt. But this person's making money while they're alive. So
and the thing is that, man, like this person's got training. Because I'm looking at his She-Hulk.
I'm going to put a link to this in our show so that everybody can enjoy this, because you should.
Oh man, he's got Wonder Woman and She-Hulk wrestling, and it looks incredible.
Let me tell you something. I'm going to tell you this. If this person is willing to do the show, I'm going to talk to this person.
Oh, holy shit.
Yeah, this is great.
Dude. He takes... You know what? No, you want to know where he makes his money? He takes commissions.
But that's what I'm saying. This is just people supporting the work on Patreon at a bare level. That's not what he's getting.
He's got a Twitter. He had to close commissions on his Twitter.
Yes, of course.
Oh, that's crazy.
I'm telling you, that's why when you sent me that, I said, this individual is making money. You doubted it when I first said it, right? I had no doubt this person was making money. If I could do this, I would, I'm sure, of course he had she. I shouldn't say it, because I know there's a female artist I follow on Twitter, and her thing is Final Fantasy characters. If you want dirty Final Fantasy characters, Jen, she does great. She does great work. She does some great She-Hulks. What is her name? Oh God, I got to look it up. Because you should see her She-Hulks. I love them. She does great She-Hulk and other stuff. Hold on a minute. What is her name? She's always complaining about AI on Twitter, so I should be able to find her pretty quick. She did the Pride cover for...
Hold on. This guy has an Instagram that is not smutty. You should see his non-smutty shit. Like, this guy is actually very good. He's got a pretty nice Hellboy. Man.
No, of course. Look at the stuff. Let's see. Okay, here it is. It is... What is this artist's name? Her name is... I want to find her name because she's really good. Where? Oh, Jen Bartel. Look up Jen Bartel. B-A-R-T... Oh, whatever. I'll just send you a link to it. But anybody else? I'm not going to link to all this stuff. Here we go. Okay. Let me do this. Oh, if I send you this, it'll give you the whole...
It.
Check. You found
Jen
it?
Bartel illustration?
Yeah. Look up She-Hulk. Look up She-Hulk specifically. Look up her She-Hulks.
Oh, geez,
I mean, don't get me wrong.
Her art in general is fantastic.
It is, but her She-Hulk is fantastic because she dresses her in like
Thanos.
Oh yeah,
her Thanos is fantastic as well.
Yeah, but if you follow her on Twitter, you will get lots.
We have to not go down this art rabbit hole because this
it'll
is
be 2
also
hours.
good.
It'll be 2 hours. But I will. But to the point that you're making about the other artist and the fact that traditional work good too. She has a whole subgenre of porn with Final Fantasy. That's on her. I think it's her OnlyFans or Patreon or whatever. I don't remember.
Yeah.
But that's what I'm saying. But she's doing DC covers, and on the side, she's doing smut from Final Fantasy. And I guarantee you, she's getting more money from that than DC.
If you can make money off that, listen, I often say I should write erotica. Listen, sex is our most base interest, and we will always have an interest. You know what I mean? So it's like, yeah, by all means, like, and especially is like, especially if you have the skill, and then on top of that, you're doing this stuff. It's like,
that's what.
So
yeah.
Oh man, that's so funny.
Yeah. I will see if that person will come on to a late night. I would love to talk to this person.
So would I. I mean, well, geez,
if they say yes, I'll bring you onto it.
I mean, that art is fucking impressive.
Where's the main site? Send me the link to the main site. I'll email this person.
Wait, you want his Twitter? He's got a Twitter.
Oh, is it Thirstastic? Is that the Twitter?
Yeah, and it's Thirsty Hours.
Thirsty Hours.
At Thirstastic 1. At Thirstastic 1.
Thirstastic 1. I got it. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But
got it.
Yeah, because like I said, that image. Listen. Once we get past the butt plug.
Closed.
Yeah, I know. Once we get past the butt plug, the study of Spiral's shoulders, somebody had to think about that.
I agree.
Like it's impressive. It goes beyond the everyday smutty art that you see out there. Anyway, Jesus Christ, man, where the hell did we start with all this?
Whoa, man, look at his Scarlet Witch.
Now
wow.
see that.
Wow. Yeah, I'm following.
Where did you go to his Did you go to his Patreon or his Instagram?
No, I'm on Twitter. I'm just on Twitter.
Oh, I don't have an account, so I can't see
I know
anything.
you can't see it, but I do.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Well,
Holy crap.
You'll have to send me one.
Wow.
See what it looks
this is dirty. Oh. Oh wow, we got some Street Fighter. Okay, got some lesbian Street Fighter here. Yep, we got a very nice Scarlet Witch.
Oh man,
wowzers! No, okay, yeah, got some guys in there too. What the fuck? Oh. Yeah, okay, I gotta stop. I'll just say that I did not expect to come across a black suited Spider-Man 69ing the Black Cat, but I found it. It's great. I mean, you can barely see it because it's all in black, but you can. Once I figured out what it was,
found it.
Is that wonderful? Is that wonderful? You see,
man. You know what? Listen, I worry.
Show me an AI that does that better. It won't.
No. I know. Show me an AI that does that. That should be the tagline to this guy's work.
Show me an AI that does that. Yeah.
I worry that artists were not being able to survive in this day.
Worry
and
no
age.
more.
And let me tell you, I think this guy has proven that it is possible. Oh man.
Yep. You're welcome. I've done my service for the weekend.
Oh my God, I just can't get over some of these.
Great. They're great.
Oh my God, he's got a black cat. She's got a tattoo on her calf that says "I love white boys." Oh, it's very smutty.
That's great. It is.
Oh my God, I'm gonna be searching through the Google Arts page for a while, which means that
we're an hour in now. You better do your movie reviews because I've got two as well.
You didn't give me a second to focus. Oh man, I certainly have to collect. I have to collect myself after this. All right. So, whew. Give me a moment.
You're welcome, everybody. You're welcome.
Yeah, listen. If you're not at work and you are curious at all, you should definitely go find this guy's work.
You should.
If you just go to Google and type in Thirstastic and do the image search, you will find a lot of hilarious shit.
That will do.
Oh man. So, oh God. I was going to skip straight to my movie review, but I can't skip straight to that movie from this. So instead, I'm going to do my little mini thing I was going to talk about, which is that I watched Escape from LA the other day.
Aha.
Right? Which, I mean, I've seen this movie. But
no, wait, what is he? What does he say?
haven't.
Tsunami, Snake, tsunami. That's it. Right?
I haven't seen it in a number of years.
Oh,
right?
I watched it a couple of years ago.
And you know what I realized? It's
a lot of fun.
You know what? I remember it being a lot worse, and it's actually a really fun, like, a satire of everything. He's making fun of, like, conservative governments. He's making fun of Hollywood. He's making fun of plastic surgery. The movie is such a massive fuck you on every level. You know, and its conclusion with basically Snake shutting the world off.
Welcome to the human race.
It's fantastic. Yeah. So it's hilarious because I was talking to somebody about this movie, and what made me watch it again was I was advising somebody they should see Escape from LA, that it was a fun but flawed movie, and they were like, "Well, I heard it was really bad, so I avoided it." So I was like, "You know what? I should watch it again and kind of see it,
Mm-hmm.
And man, I had so much fun with that movie. Like, it was so, like, Escape from New York is a serious flick. It's serious. It's gritty. It's an awesome movie. But Escape from LA is a fucking fun movie. The basketball sequence, he chases down a fucking Cadillac. I mean, it's all so ridiculous, and yet it's so fun at the same time.
Doesn't the president say, I now render this final solution? Doesn't he use the Nazi term?
Yes. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. They're very Nazi-ish.
And he so cared for his country, he gave up his only misbegotten daughter. Yeah. I remember that movie, I have it memorized pretty much. I'll tell you what dooms the movie. This is why most people shit on it, honestly. It's the CG is so bad. It's awful. The some of the matting is really, the compositing is bad. And that's why people think it's bad.
Yeah, but the movie itself, like if you actually pay attention to the satire that's going on, to the shit he's lampooning.
No, I agree.
I mean,
that's why I like it.
With Bruce Campbell,
the Surgeon General of Los Angeles. Nobody even picks that up when he says what that. They don't think about what that is. Oh, well, you've got one good eye. Yeah. Oh, and he feels the girl up, and he's like, "Ooh," and they're real.
And everybody kept saying. Everyone kept saying to him, "I thought you'd be taller." Yeah,
well, that's a play on. I thought.
And the fact that, what's her name? It plays. Oh God, what's her name? The black woman that plays his. It's supposed to be.
Foxy
one
Brown.
of his ex-partners.
What's her name?
Yeah.
Oh my God, I was just watching a documentary about her. Pam Grier. Got it.
Pam Grier. Yeah. So I love the fact that Pam Grier plays his buddy who became a woman. And they modulated her voice to like deepen it a little bit to kind of make it more like, so that it's not just Pam Grier's voice, but it's like weird little things like that they did throughout the movie. And then the fact that Pam Grier is so awesome, because normally if a movie does that, they make it as a joke, right? Where they're like, oh, his partner became a woman, right? It's like, no. His partner became Pam Grier, and Pam Grier kicks ass from the moment she shows up in that movie. You know what I mean? I'm quite sad that Pam Grier does not make it. So yeah, it was really enjoyable to see it again. I had so much fun. And I think as long as you're willing, I'm getting better at letting all the CG stuff go. Cause I'm kind of like, you know what? You're a victim of the time when your movy came out.
No, I that's why I'm saying it doesn't bother me either, but I think a lot of people get hung up on that. The thing that honestly I do lament, but it's one of those, whatever, is the movie he was trying to make that movie for over 10 years. So if the movie had been made when he wanted to make it, there wouldn't have been CG because it wouldn't have existed yet.
You know what? I'm glad that it took so long, because I worry if he made that movie earlier, it would have steered to the more serious. Whereas I like the I like the absurdist perspective he takes on everything. I mean, the bad guy of the movie.
Kurt Russell wrote the whole ending. He said that he didn't write the end.
Oh, the whole ending where he blows. Where he turns off the world?
This thing was Carpenter and Russell wanted to do another film because they both enjoyed the character. They both liked making the movie. They liked each other. So I agree. Yeah. Yes, could it have been serious? Maybe, but the fact that Russell wrote the ending makes me think, well, maybe it wouldn't have been. Maybe this was going to be something where John Carpenter would let him handle.
And I love that ending too. That ending is one of the things that makes that movie great, which is at the end of he's between two opposite forces. He's got Che Guevara on one side, who wants to turn the whole world upside down, and he's got the president who's this ultra conservative, wants a fascist overlord, and he says fuck it. And I think he actually says if I do this for them, they win. If I do this for you, you win. Instead, he goes, I'll just shut off the world and nobody wins. And I love that idea. It's the whole nobody wins, everybody loses. And that's Snake Plissken's solution to the problem. Do you know what I mean? Like, I do love that movie quite a bit. So if you haven't seen Escape from LA and you're feeling a bit absurdist, it's a bit action satire. You know what? Is there a genre of action satire?
Yeah, but it's generally Italian trash films like Robo War.
Well, I think of Escape from LA as an action satire.
Well, wait a minute. RoboCop's an action satire.
Oh, it is, yeah, because they're making fun of all the.
They're making fun of everything. 6,000 SUX. Yeah. Come on.
I'd buy that for $1. Yeah,
I'd buy that for $1.
And I'm going to mention this. I have an actual movie, but I'm going to mention this one other movie just because it recently became available. This is an 80s movie that I loved when I was younger that I have not been able to see because nobody had it. It recently came on Amazon. I think you can get it for like $3, right? And if you haven't seen this movie, you need to sit down and watch this movie with your wife. Have you ever seen the movie My Demon Lover?
Oh, man, that movie is awesome.
Yes, of course. I don't think my wife. It just came back on Amazon.
I doubt she ever saw it. I doubt she's ever seen it.
Oh,
I doubt it. She wasn't into that stuff.
$3. You know what? I love that movie growing up, and I watched. It used to be like it was on all the time late at night. And what's funny is so this movie, for those who have not seen it, it's the 1987 My Demon Lover. It's basically a guy who is making out with essentially a gypsy's daughter and gets cursed for it. The Pisatsky. And what the Pisatsky curse does is whenever you get horny, it releases the demon and you start to turn into a monster, right? And once you become a monster, it can actually give you really great abilities, but it's not that controllable at the same time. So our hero, whose name is Kaz, who is like the ultimate 80s like stereotype of a character, has been trying to avoid being in any kind of relationships for most of his life. For a movie that's based on the idea that a guy turns into a demon when he gets horny, there's no nudity in this movie. I was dumbfounded. Like, there's people making out. There's lots of kissing and sexual scenarios. There's no nudity whatsoever. So if you're worried that it's going to be like an 80s tit movie, it's not. Miraculously. But I also forgot how good the special effects in this movie were. There's a sequence in there where there's two Pisatskys in the movie, and one of them is killing people. But they think that it's the good Pisatsky that's doing it. So when the one woman shows up thinking that it's the good Pisatsky that's murdering people, he's talking to her, and as he's talking to her, he's actually phasing through different demonic like versions of himself. And I forgot like how good those special effects are. Like, you know, like he's got these wings that roll out and then horns come out of his head. At one point he becomes a woman and the head explodes, and then it's just, yeah, it's such a weird movie, and it's listed as a horror comedy. So I guess it is, but it's way more comedy than horror. Like, I'd say like 70, I'd go like 80-20. The most horrible scene is when the crazy woman's head explodes. That's pretty freaky. But otherwise, like, the demons are all pretty mellow. I mean, there is murder in the movie and whatnot. So what it was PG-13. There you go. It's PG-13. But Jesus Christ, that movie was so much fun. It's still a ton of fun. And it's available. It's finally available. So everybody who didn't see Demon Lover, who's, wasn't young and unrestricted in their youth like Joe and I were, which, you know what? So you and I are both Gen X, right? We're like the tail end of Gen X.
I know. Yeah, you're what? 2 years younger than me?
I'm 79.
Okay, then you should be, yes, because Generation
I'm the tail
X
end.
Was...
Yeah. I heard a fantastic...
Yes, 1980's the cutoff, so you just made it.
Yeah. So I heard a fantastic reference. Well, and also, I feel like my upbringing was slightly different, too, because my parents were so much older that I feel like I was raised in almost like an early 19... like, I could have been born 10 years earlier, because that's the way my parents raised me. Anyway, but I heard a great discussion of what being Gen X was like, and they said it was basically like, it was like Home Depot. Now, for those in other countries, Home Depot is a ultra large home goods store. They sell wood, power tools. They're usually the size of warehouses. It's miles of walking, right? But the other fascinating thing about Home Depots in this country is you can never find people that work there. Have you had this where you're walking around and it looks like there should be people working there?
Of course.
But they're fucking empty.
You even see the stairs and you're like, oh, somebody will be coming back to that. And you just stand there and wait. And no one ever
exactly. And so this comedian described how being Gen X was like basically being raised with Home Depot parents. There should be somebody home. It looks like there should be a parent around, but there never is. And I was like, yeah, you know what? That describes a lot of my youth. And because of that, I saw a lot of movies way earlier than I probably should have. Demon Lover was one of those movies. Because if you think about it, right? 1979 to 1987, My Demon Lover comes out. I probably didn't see it till 88. How old am I? What am I, 9 years old?
That would be 9 years old. I think I'm not correct.
Yeah, I was 9 years old when I saw My Demon Lover.
Yeah.
And I remember it fondly. And what's hilarious is I remember there being a lot more boobs in it than there were. There are none. So anyway, that movie is available now on Amazon Prime. I guess I think it's available now all over the place. But it wasn't available for the longest time, and it is now. And if you haven't seen it, it is a stunningly funny 80s comedy. It's cheesy as shit, but the monster effects are really good, and it's that same kind of, it's that ridiculous 80s movie, and who doesn't want to see a movie about a guy that when he gets horny turns into a demon? With really good special effects. And this is the thing you were talking about, is that if Escape from LA had been made sooner, they wouldn't have leaned on the CG and would have leaned on practical effects, right, which at that point were much more, yeah. And this movie is all done with practical effects. I think there's a little bit of green screen towards the end.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure. There usually is.
You got to ask your wife if she's seen this, because she hasn't.
I will, but I'm pretty sure she hasn't.
I hope.
I almost guarantee. Oh. I almost guarantee she hasn't. Like I said, this is a movie that my wife, when she was younger, probably would have just turned off and been like, "That's too weird." I'm so curious, because that guy Kaz is Scott Valentine. I think he went on to do Facts of Life. It wouldn't surprise me if she saw parts of it and never really watched it, because it just doesn't seem like.
Oh yeah. All right. So anyway, I just wanted to mention Demon Lover because people should see that. Now, my actual movie review, and the reason that I couldn't just go from Thirstastic to my movie, was I watched Super Mario Brothers. And it's hard to go from, Black Cat and Spider-Man 69ing to Super Mario
You're talking
Brothers.
About the animated one.
The animated one, yeah, that Illumination did.
Yep.
And it's going to be a light review because it's a kid's movie, pretty much. It's a kid's nostalgia movie, right? Kids enjoy it because it's shiny and fun and there's lots of action. Parents enjoy it because it's a nostalgia movie. And I have to say, I did really enjoy it as a nostalgia movie. I don't think I ever need to see it again. I mean, honestly, I didn't want to see it in the first place. This was one that my wife picked, which is really weird because normally she's like, when we do like movie nights with the kids, there's like zero input from her usually. She's just like, whatever. But it was between, we had 4 movies on the chopping block. It was either the Keaton Batman, which was my pick, the Garfield Spider-Man, which my daughter really wanted, and then we had Quantumania, which I do want to see because it looks weird, and the last thing we dropped in was Super Mario Brothers, and my wife went for it, which is like weird that she went for it, and then my kids were like, yeah, and that was it. But do you have an interest at all? Have you?
I mean, I wouldn't not watch it, but I also don't really care. It's
yeah. And that's the thing is if these were the old days where you had cable TV and this thing came on, you wouldn't have turned it off.
No, I'll tell you why I don't really care is that unlike the live action movie, which is a train wreck, but it's an interesting.
But hilarious.
But it's also such a weird interpretation of it, whereas the movie seems like it's just the new games. And I play the games. So,
so the thing is...
And honestly, and I know this is blasphemy for me to say, to some degree, I love Mario as an Italian plumber. Don't get me wrong. I think he's a great stereotype. I love it. But he's far from the most interesting Nintendo character. I'd like to see a Metroid movie. I'd like to see a Legend of Zelda movie where there's some variation. I mean, Mario's not much of anything. Honestly, he's not.
I give them credit, though. They tried to create an arc for the character, which is basically that Mario and his brother are like, they're essentially the Italian guys in their early 20s who still live at home, who are trying to get their plumbing business like off the ground, and their dad thinks that they're a bunch of fuck-ups, and like they've got a lot of uncles. Like there's actually a sequence where his whole family is at dinner, and it's something out of like an 80s movie. It all goes back to the 80s. It's like an 80s movie, right? Where like his dad's giving him shit because why doesn't he do something with himself? And Mario and Luigi just spent all their money on a commercial to kind of get their name out there, and like and the setup is essentially that they're trying to like get their name out there, and there's a huge water main that breaks in Brooklyn, and they take off to see if they can fix it so they can get like notoriety, and instead they fall into a weird part of the understructure of the city, into the infrastructure, and they find a room full of tubes, weird tubes, and Luigi gets sucked into one of them, and then Mario gets sucked into it looking for him, and that takes them to basically the Super Mario Brothers universe with Princess Peach and Koopa, right? I like the fact there's no real explanation for it. Shit just happens. I love it when shit just happens. They set up the characters. They set up the fact that they're kind of these struggling guys, and they really play on the fact that Mario is this little dude. He's a head shorter than Luigi. He's like the smallest guy around, but they give him the he's like an Italian Captain America. You know Captain America. So like before Steve Rogers becomes Captain America, where he's just that little guy.
Oh yeah, no, I know exactly what you mean. The little plucky guy who just won't give in.
That is what they have made Mario in this movie. He's this little Italian guy that won't give up, and then he basically figures out how to use the power-ups that are kind of around this world to become powerful and not give up. And so, very, very kids movie. Makes no sense. Don't think about it that hard. And as long as you don't think about it that hard, you can just enjoy it as a silly kids movie. The animation is done really well. The action sequences are very dynamic. The way that they're put together. The music is all referential to the original games. So at one point they get the star. Remember the invulnerability star? And they managed to cut. Yeah, you know what? You should find that sequence online because they cut the music. They find a way to kind of blend that music into the orchestral theme, so that it's like referential for anybody who knows it, and yet it's not like something old and stale for people who don't have an interest in where it came from. You know what I mean? Like, 'cause my kids don't know shit about Super Mario Brothers. We never had a Nintendo. I tried to get them into Mario Kart, and they were like. They did not give a shit about the Nintendo DS. They might now. Now they want to play Mario Kart. And in that respect, this movie's done a lot in that it has made people who didn't have any curiosity about Mario suddenly be like, hey, we want to play some Super Mario games. And I'm like, guys, this wasn't here in the original game. The original game was like, little pixel graphics scurrying across the screen. But very referential, very much nostalgia. And yet, I thought it was really enjoyable. I wouldn't have gone looking for it myself, but I did think it was quite lighthearted fun to have on the background. And if you like Super Mario Brothers, or if you like that world, they brought Donkey Kong in. They had a reference to the Rainbow Road, which, you know what? I can't tell you how many hours of my life was spent playing Mario Kart on the Rainbow Road. And the thing is, like, I had an enjoyable time as an adult because I know what a lot of stuff they're referencing. And my kids fucking, like, adored it. Like, absolutely adored it. And now they want to play fucking Super Mario Brother games. And the fact that his final form... So they bring all the suits out, which is great. His final form that, like, kind of saves the day, other than the invulnerability star, was the Tanuki. And, like... Come on, Super Mario Brothers 3. How many hours of your life did you spend playing
tons,
Super Mario Brothers 3? Trying to get the Tanuki suit.
Yep. That was the best one where you could turn into a stone.
Yeah, so there's there's so much there for adults who love especially, I mean, like, I think that they used a lot from the newer games, but I think that they heavily reference the original games, like even to the music. Like I said, all the music from the original game is there.
I hear it. I'm listening to the Starman theme. Yeah.
Oh, the start sequence? Yeah, so...
That's good.
Illumination does decent animated movies.
Well, and I read Jack Black was great, so, you know.
Yeah, and their version of Koopa where basically he wants to marry Peach and take over their worlds. I like that, and they really lean on Jack Black's abilities, so there's a lot of singing on his part. But they use like the full range of his voice, which is funny. And it's like the absurdist villain and the little guy fighting back, and I mean they just do a lot of fun shit. Is it Seth Rogen as Donkey Kong? Somebody said that they were tired of Seth Rogen being in movies, but honestly, I kind of like Donkey Kong with Seth Rogen's voice. This irritated King Kong. Do you remember the King Kong animated show? Did you ever see that when you were younger?
Oh yeah, you mean Donkey Kong?
Where like the Donkey Kong. Where
yes,
where his dad was.
The only
always,
problem I have with Seth
was,
Rogen is his weed smoking has clearly damaged his voice. He sounds like he's got throat cancer a lot of times when I hear him.
Yes, and that's how you know it's him right away.
Yeah, it's like.
But it oddly works. It oddly works for Kong. You know.
No, I'm not saying it couldn't work for that, but it's just like, wow, you sound a lot different than you used to, man.
Well, I mean, he's also a lot older too. I mean, you know,
I don't think
all that smoking.
I think it's
all that smoking is going to get to your voice.
Yeah.
So,
but yeah, I mean, his voice as Donkey Kong makes sense to me because it is a rough voice, so it makes complete sense.
Yeah. But like, this is not meant to be like a massive review of it. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it as a parent. I would not go looking for it for myself, but I watched it with my kids. They had a great time. I had a great time. My kids were like very enthusiastic to own it. They want to watch it a ton. Illumination always does good animation. Like I like their style, which they've kind of kept it in.
Also, that's another reason I'm not all that in a rush to see it, because it's not aimed at me. The Bob Hoskins and Leguizamo one, the reason I like it so much is because it was before Nintendo had that stranglehold. So it's a movie that they would never allow to be made now.
No.
So it's interesting. This is exactly what I would expect Nintendo to approve and go through a vetting process and say, yes,
I'm surprised
this projects the image we want.
I'm surprised a movie like this, a Super Mario Brothers movie like this wasn't made years ago. This is exactly what they wanted. From what I've read, they were so burned by that experience, the first one, that they just flatly refused for a long time. They were like, no, we want total control, which is video games, and that's it. And then finally it's gotten to the point where, you know, they have enough clout to control an animated film. You have to remember, for a long time, video games were way under movie making. So the movie studios had the power. That is now inverted. So now Nintendo can come to a studio and say, we'll let you make this movie, but we're going to control it. As opposed to 10, 15 years ago, the studio would have said, no, we're going to do it or you can get lost. We don't need you. Now they need them. Well, it was fun. It was fun. I was not I was not angry about it. I was not unhappy to see it. So if you're a parent and you're looking for a fun movie to watch with the kids, check it out. Especially if you enjoyed and or just played Super Mario Brothers as a kid. I mean, I thought it was funny that in the movie he's playing Super Mario Brothers at one point. Oh, he's not. He's not playing Super Mario Brothers. He's playing the old Nintendo, and I think he was playing like Joust or something like that. I gotta see what game he was.
Was it Balloon Fight? Yes. I think it was Balloon Fight.
Was it?
Was it Joust? Maybe it was Joust. But I did see the thing that he's playing Nintendo, which is kind of funny.
So either way, yeah, it was enjoyable, and that's my whole review. Is that it was enjoyable, it was fun, and if your kids want to see it, definitely check it out. You'll have a good time.
Well, both of my reviews.
But if you're not with your kids, go watch My Demon Lover or
or one of my two films, because both of my films are a ton of fun, not made for kids, but great fun movies. And I'm going to do them in the inverse order that I watched them, because one of them is definitely the better in terms of overall quality and budget of the other two. But both of them, blanket fun time recommendations. The first one, and I mentioned this in my short review, I'm going to mention it again to give credit. There is a Twitter account called The B Movie Vault. Now, this person, it's a New Zealand person who posts mostly poster art of wacky, 80s movies, very often non-American versions of posters. So you see a lot of alternate art, a lot of, different languages, not all, and some that are the kind of, they completely misinterpreted this. There's that whole genre of posters where they were done and clearly the people just didn't know what the movie was and painted weird stuff, but also just different artistic versions of movie posters, which I eat up. And every so often, this person will post one and I'll look at it and be like, that might actually be worth watching. Honestly, very often, it isn't. Very often, I'll look and I'll be like, okay, well, it's a great poster, but the movie doesn't interest me. But then there was one that was posted that had 3 magical things. One, it had the word neon in the title. It's called Neon City from 1991. So neon, right away, I'm always interested because I like neon. 2, Michael Ironside, top billed. And I went, Michael Ironside, like him. And then I read about the movie, and it was a post-apocalyptic road film. And I went, okay. So, but I kept seeing references to things that made me think of either Mad Max, which is naturally what you think of with wasteland road film. But also I kept getting Highlander 2 vibes off it. Now, I don't remember, when was Highlander 2? And I was actually correct.
Highlander 2 is like 90s, wasn't it?
Well, this is 91, so Highlander 2 was 90 what? Because he looks like he's starting to grow his hair and act like Katana. Honestly, he feels like, although he's a good guy.
Wasn't
Highlander
he totally
2,
wearing a wig in that movie?
Same year. No, probably extensions.
Was it really?
Yes, same year. Highlander 2 was 1991. This is probably the movie he was doing either before or after it, where his hair is long. And then what they did was they put extensions in it. No, this is his real hair in this movie. This is not a wig. So, and it's not long, but it's like, it's kind of like Sean Connery's hair length in the second film. That's what his natural hair length is in this movie, where it's kind of a little ponytail, tiny one, not that long, luscious hair he's got as Katana. No, it's not there, which I would guess is mostly extensions on long hair. That's usually what they did. So I fired the movie up because you can watch it on Tubi or Freevee. I think it's on a couple free different channels. And I went, okay, let me give this thing my obligatory 10 minutes and see if I'm in or out. And immediately I was like, oh, okay, this is low budget, but this is not low effort. This is like Ironside he's in the whole movie. So it's not like cameo, gimmick name thing. And he's good. And he's playing they call him an ex-ranger, which is the same thing as ex-cop in the series. Yeah.
I'll tell you what, the plot actually does sound interesting.
It is. It's good. It's good. It's not, listen, it's one of those movies that, like the thing with the CG in Escape from LA, you're going to have to overlook the fact that it clearly has a small budget, which I actually think helps it, believe it or not, and I'll get to that.
So is Michael Ironside the guy delivering the bounty?
Yes, the bounty guy. Yep, he's the bounty hunter. Right. So he was a cop.
And is Vanity his
prey, correct, is the person that's running. And then he ends up in like 2 seconds becoming a love interest, which that is the biggest, and I'm going to use problem in quotes because I don't think it's that much of a problem, but you're going to notice that the story jumps some scenes and just assumes you're fine with it. There's some stuff that was...
Listen, if you're in the post-apocalyptic environment and Vanity wants to get it on with you, it's not hard to
right, but they go from wanting to kill each other to within one scene where they find, I'm not kidding, a sauna, then they're suddenly in love. So I'm just saying that this is a movie where you have to check a bit of your logic at the door, but not a ton, because there's also really neat ideas in this that, again, evoked Highlander 2. So Ironside is a bounty hunter, and the opening scene, Vanity is about to get probably raped by some... let me set the world up, even though they don't really do that until midway through the movie, but I'll set it up. In the future, at some point, there was either a world war or at least a serious conflict between nations, and a scientist came up with a weapon that he thought would end the war, would be so powerful that it would end the war once they realized it was there. And when he demonstrated it, it nuked the ozone and basically started the planet into ecological ruin. Sound like Highlander 2 yet? So that's the world. The world, and I like this movie does something that few movies of this type do, because most movies like this, you are well into the apocalypse. Like shit's destroyed, ruined, society has fallen, the whole thing. This movie is in the midway point, which is, again, I like that it's here. So society has not completely broken down. There are still law enforcement officers. There are still settlements. You still can survive. Not necessarily. Well, some people are in comfort. So not everybody is in ruin. The world is not in ruin. Cars can run. There is not a shortage of fuel. There doesn't appear to be a shortage of water. There is still currency and trading. Weapons exist. It's not like everything is scarce. It's just that you have to be careful when you go outside. And mutants are illegal now. And they don't really say why. I think the idea is supposed to be that they're trying to preserve genetic health, and that's why mutants are outlawed. They don't really say. But what you find out very quickly is that Michael Ironside and his wife had a son who... He wasn't even a mutant in the traditional sense, like you would think, with, like mutant completely. But I think it was he had a hearing issue, and they interpreted that as a mutation, and they took his son away and I think killed him. And that's what caused him to leave the Rangers and become a bounty hunter. So he has a humongous grudge against the guy who is in charge at Neon City. So he's like, I'm never going to Neon City because if I do, I'm going to kill the guy who runs, because he finds out that guy is now in charge of the Rangers at Neon City. So he's in charge of the whole thing. Before he wasn't, he got promoted and went to Neon City. So he's like, well, I'm never going there then because, I'll kill this guy. But the head of the law enforcement at the outpost he brings Vanity to, there's a transport that's going to be leaving, and it has some VIP people, including one rich woman whose father is at Neon City. And the captain at the settlement gets a report that some road raiders, they call them skins, but essentially they're outlaws on the road, raiders, that there's a high likelihood that the raiders will attempt to assault the transport. And he goes to Michael Ironside and he says, I want you to back up the guy who's running the transport, he's an ex-football player. If you looked him up, he's been in a ton of movies, and then he died of brain tumor because he took steroids. It's pretty sad, really. But that guy was in a bunch of movies. He's a huge guy. And he says he's
Is he the one with the mullet?
Yes, that guy.
Yeah, he's
I
pretty
know that
good,
guy's, he's big, and I've seen him and stuff, so I know him. So the guy says to Ironside, I need you to help him. And Ironside's like, fuck you. I'll take her myself. If I have to go to Neon City, that's fine. But I'm not going on a transport because I don't want to go there anyway. And the guy wants to convince him, and he says no. So then he says, oh, you can't turn your bounty in here. And Ironside right away is like, okay, I see what you're trying to do. I'll take my own car. At which point the guy blows up his car in front of him. And then he's like really pissed. But then they knock him out. They basically throw him into the transport, and they tell the guy, all right, take off. And on the transport is the mullet guy, big mullet guy, I know him from Max Headroom. He's been in a bunch of stuff. He's a small guy who looks like Oppenheimer, basically. Imagine an Asian Oppenheimer, a little guy who looks like he's from the 50s, suitcase, fedora, very quiet, just keeps to himself. That guy's on there. The rich girl is on there. It turns out that Ironside's ex-wife is on the thing, going to Neon City to get married and start a new life after their split, which he's not too happy about when he wakes up. Ironside himself, Vanity, a guy, and this is one of the places where the movie just decides that something is important and not, and then it is again, a serial killer impersonating a doctor. We see a scene of him killing his doctor, who is also his drug dealer, then impersonating him, and during the middle of the movie, he seems perfectly normal. He does not go psychopath again until they get to Neon City. So that's what I mean about, you got to overlook some things. So, secret serial killer doctor. Who else? There's somebody else. Who am I missing? Basically what you think is a comedian, almost like a prankster guy who's always pulling out, like a magician. He's always pulling out the scarves and, the doing magic tricks. But you see a scene where he's talking to somebody and the guy's like, look, man, you've got to leave because the cops are going to come for you. And he's like, why? People want what I'm selling. And he's like, yeah, I know, but you can't stay here. They're going to come find you. And you don't know what it is for a while. Then you find out about halfway through their journey. And then I think that's everybody. Yes, I'm pretty sure that's everybody. So transport takes off. Transport is a big bus with a little trailer behind it, which apparently is loaded with explosives for no reason except that it makes an important plot point later. This is what I mean about got to overlook these things. Because I just
at least they least they didn't put it in the actual transport.
No, I assumed it was a luggage trailer. It's not. It's just got explosives for some reason. So that's the first 10, 15 minutes is just getting the ensemble together and getting them onto the bus. The whole middle is essentially Fury Road if you just followed the war rig all the way to its destination. The majority of the middle of the movie is them on the road. And I went, okay, what is this going to be? Is this just going to be that they keep getting stopped? Are they going to break down? Like, what is... you have to fill, even though it's only 90 minutes, I'm sitting here going, is this just going to be a series of Raider attacks? Because that would be not necessarily bad, but kind of, not much. But no, the movie is expertly paced in that it throws things at you every 10 minutes, and every time it's something different. So the first thing that happens is they encounter a cloud of some kind. There's a name for it, but I think they call it a Xander cloud, after the guy who invented the weapon, whose name is Xander. And basically, they all have to put on oxygen masks, because if you take 2 breaths of it, you're dead. Whatever this is, it's a toxic pollutant that is a byproduct of the atmosphere getting destroyed, and they're driving through it. And of course, there's a bit of, the tension is, somebody's mask is going to fail. Of course, it's Ironside's ex-wife, and he helps her, which is him softening a little bit to her because he's calling her a whore and a bitch and everything up until that point. And so the first thing is the Xander cloud. Okay, now they're going for a little bit. And then they stop at a outpost, and they find out that everybody at the outpost has been massacred, including, I think, a girlfriend or good friend of the driver. So he has a big dramatic scene where he's crying. And then that's the first scene where the serial killer, as the doctor says, okay, I'll treat her, but you guys have to leave because I got to try to keep this environment like sterile or whatever. And of course he just kills her because he's not a doctor. He doesn't know what to do. So he just kills her and says, I did everything I could. But, which if it had been played more cleverly, might have been more of an interesting element, but they don't handle it very well. But still, it's like, okay, that's a fun gimmick, I guess. And so, okay, back on the road. And then 10 minutes later, they encounter Raiders. And the Raiders are shooting at them. They're all shooting back. And then the comedian... Oh, I'm sorry. I forgot one before that. Sorry, I forgot one thing. They're driving along, and then they stop for them to rest. Or Ironside sees something. He says, let's stop. And he gets out, and you see a family of what you would assume would be mutants in this world. Completely heavily scarred and disfigured. Like just barely scratching a living. It's a father, a mother, and a child. And Ironside goes up to them and says, don't worry, I'll help you out. And he goes to the comedian. He says, give me a red vial. And he gives him the red vial and he gives it to them. And the dad basically says, thank you, or something to that effect. And you see them walk into the cave. And the rich girl says, what did he give them? And Vanity says, it's poison. It's because they have no life and all they'll do is suffer, and that will let them kill themselves. So what the guy was dealing was euthanasia vials at at the other outpost to people who wanted it. Basically, he was selling death pills, or he was like a Kevorkian type. And it's Ironside recognizing what this is to be a mutant because his son was a mutant. It's a great little scene because it's not played up all that much, but he hands him the vial. You find out it's them going to kill themselves with like an infant. And it's just played straight, but it's this great little scene. And then they're back on the road. Then the Raiders attack. They're all shooting. The comedian gets hit and dies. Again, after the serial killer is like trying to help, says to the rest of the people, I've got what I need here. I'll see what I can do for him. They get off the bus. And of course, the guy dies. He says something like, what's worse than bleeding to death? Getting your neck snapped by a psycho or something. And he snaps his neck. And he's like, I did everything I could do. Again. So they bury him and they take off again. And they're driving, and then they hit the Bright. There's this thing called the Bright, which is essentially a type of solar flare on Earth. But they don't really explain it, but they don't need to, where there's suddenly this very bright shining light. They all have to put on goggles. They have to bring these things over the windows. And then the bus starts heating up. And the guy tells Ironside, get up front with me. I need you to run the switches. And Ironside says, what switches? He's like, all right, this is to try to radiate the temperature. He's like, here's the 4 switches. If you get to the 4th one, you got to wait till the last minute, because once you do that, we're in such danger that if we don't get out within 5 seconds of that switch being thrown, it's over with and it doesn't matter. So you want to wait till the very last minute. And so they're waiting and waiting. And of course they get to a point where he's like, all right, throw the switch. And he hits the switch, at which point, and in the Raider fight, that's when they unhooked the trailer and then blew the explosives up and everything exploded. And during the fight, and of course you're going to figure out where this is going, the little Oppenheimer guy, constructs a laser weapon for Ironside to use. So you can already tell who that guy's going to be, but we'll get back to that. So he hits the switch in the bright, and these water tanks explode on the roof of the van, which cools it off just enough for them to drive out. So it's like, it just blows all these water tanks and just showers it in water, and that cools it off just enough for them to make it out. And then they arrive at Neon City. And when they get to Neon City, or right before that, though, they realize that the Oppenheimer guy is, in fact, the guy who nuked the ozone layer. And, the Ironside's like, okay, you're clearly not just some nobody, and the guy at the front of the guy driver, the mullet guy, he says, you're Xander, right? And he's like, yes. And he's like, well, why are you trying to go to Neon City? They'll kill you if they find out who you are. And he's like, well, you're going to turn me in. And Ironside's like, well, what are you going to do? And he's like, I'm convinced I can fix this. I made this mistake. I did this. I believe I can figure out how to fix it.
Very Highlander then, huh?
Right. And Ironside says, okay, do you think you can make it to the border on your own? And he says, I think with a little luck I can. He's like, all right, well, then we're not going to turn you in. Good luck. And they let him go. And then they go on their way and they get to Neon City. And when they get to Neon City, Ironside's ex was hit in the Raider thing. So she's injured, but she's still alive. They get her there. They bring her in, and he's been shot. And Mullet guy got wounded in the leg. He gets shot in the leg, but that's not as dire. So if the wife's in real bad shape, Mullet's gotten shot in the leg, and so they get there, and Ironside's like, they're all filing in, and Ironside says, the guy Jenkins is the one he wants to kill. He's like, is Jenkins here? And he says, yeah. Is he expecting you? He's like, yeah, he's expecting me. Find him. In the meantime, the serial killer had, before they got there, when the woman was shot in the leg, he basically bandages her leg and he loads her up on barbiturates, I think. And he says, I gave her pain medication so that, she could make it to Neon City. And then once they're there, Ironside's looking around for the Jenkins guy, and the doctor comes out and says, hey, I'm sorry about your friend. She died. And he's like, what do you mean? She's like, well, somebody gave her a massive amount of barbiturates. I don't know why they would ever do that. By the way, we're looking for a guy who killed a doctor back in the outpost you came from. So if you see him, let us know. And Ironside goes fucking nuts and grabs a gun. And at which point the serial killer suddenly reverts to serial killer mode and is ready to slit the rich girl's throat. And Ironside basically shoots him a bunch of times and kills him. And then for whatever reason, then he decides in that act to not kill the guy who killed his son. He says, you know what? I don't care enough. I'm going to just leave. And he throws the gun to him, and him and Vanity leave. They take a car, and they're driving along, and they're leaving, and you don't really know where they're going, at which point you see a little person way out on the horizon as they're driving, and they pull up, and it's the Oppenheimer guy. It's Xander. And they're like, would you like a lift? And he's like, sure. And he gets in, and then the three of them drive off to, you assume, cross the border together. And that's the end of the movie. And it's great. It's a fucking blast.
I like that ending.
Yeah, I do. I like everything. Ironside's great. I mean, I'm skipping over a lot of stuff because there's not really much to talk about within the confines of the movie. It's a pretty straightforward movie, just like I said. But it's really good. Every character gets a character moment. So all that ensemble I described, I didn't talk about every moment they get, but they all get something to do. So they're not just a bunch of people for, a couple of them to get killed off here and there. Each of them gets a little moment, and you find out a little bit about them. Vanity eventually, because the reason that he captured her was for murder of her parents. And what you find out is that her parents actually were foster parents, and it was her and 11 other kids. And they abused them, and they basically pimped them out and sold them to people for all kinds of shit. And the kids decided to leave, and they set the house on fire, thinking it would delay the parents from catching them. They didn't realize the parents would die in the fire. And when the cops caught them, or, showed up, she took the blame and said she was the only one who was involved, and that's why they marked her for murder. And she managed to escape, and she was on the run. So even her, they all get these little things where you get their backstory. It's a great movie. Now, it's shoddy. There's barely any effects, but what they managed to overcome it very well. I think they get over that. There's actual squibs and stuff. So you do see people bleeding and the guns are firing and that kind of thing. There are some pyrotechnics. It's not completely devoid of anything. And the story does at times warp forward really quickly, or like with the serial killer, he actually for a while in the middle seems like a nice guy. Like he's genuinely maybe changing, and then suddenly just reverts back to being Hannibal Lecter at the end. So that's not handled all that great. There's that kind of stuff, but it's minor. It's little complaints in what otherwise is an inventive and fun movie. I like the bright. I like the fact that everything that they ran into was a different problem. It wasn't just the same thing over and over and over. There's little world building in terms of, like I said, the bright, the Xander cloud, the fact that they're ready for it, so they know this thing exists. This is a byproduct. Again, I like the fact that it's not at the end of the world. It's on the way there. All this little stuff adds up to a relatively fun movie. It's I could see myself watching this every 4 or 5 years. Be like, I haven't watched something with Michael Ironside in a while. It's going to be Highlander 2 again, or I'll watch, Neon City. Oh, screw it. I just watched Highlander 2. Let me watch Neon City and have a good time.
This has gotten into your top 5 Michael Ironside movies.
Oh, yeah, because they give him a lot to do, and he does a lot with it. Like, he's good in this. And I like the mullet guy. And this is one interesting thing about this, is everybody is kind of aware of each other, and they all start out, as you would expect, with a low-grade suspicion, but not outright distrust. So everybody's kind of keeping an eye on each other, but nobody outright distrusts each other. That's another kind of post-apocalyptic thing, where everybody is ready to put a knife to the other person's throat because it's dog eat dog now, damn it. It's one of those things. This is more like, I don't know if I can count on this person when the chips are down, but I'm not expecting them to put a knife between my ribs. You know what I mean? There's a degree there of difference between outright, I will pull a gun on you if you sneeze wrong, and if you sneeze wrong, I'll look at you to make sure that you aren't covering something with your handkerchief that's in your hand. You know what I mean? There is a difference there. So it's kind of like Boba Fett when Jabba the Hutt's hired him. Like, Jabba the Hutt don't trust Boba Fett, but he'll let him have a pistol inside of his, gallery where nobody else does. So it's fine. That's what this movie kind of is. So I like when Mullet and Ironside finally decide, okay, we can trust, or basically they're like, well, we don't have a choice. We're both in this shit together, so we might as well just work together. And then they become friendly as the movie goes on. Because it starts out like they know each other, but don't necessarily like each other. And it's more that Ironside seems like he's just anti-everything, because he's angry. And so, like I said, it's not some kind of hidden cinematic masterpiece, but it's a very fun movie. That's, treading on familiar ground, but a very, very fun movie. And if you like Michael Ironside, yeah, it's definitely one of the better things I've seen him in, where he's in the majority, if not the entirety of the movie, and he gets to do interesting things. And yeah, he's playing like a good Katana. Like Katana if he was a nice guy. And yeah, the ending is great.
A good Katana. All right.
Yeah, I like the fact that Xander doesn't turn out to be a megalomaniacal nutbag. He's actually aware that he did something terrible, and he's trying to fix it. He knows that, he can't do that where anybody might report him, because once they find out who he is, he basically resigns himself to being turned in. And they're like, no, we're not going to turn you in because, you've demonstrated that you're not a piece of shit. So that kind of stuff I like. Good movie. Like I said, free to watch. So if you get 15 minutes in and you decide it's not for you, you can just turn it off. You ain't lost nothing. So don't worry about it. Now we're going to go back 10 years, going to 1981. This movie you can watch in about 80 places for free, and it's excellent. It's called Road Games, and it's from 1981. And this is basically Stacy Keach is the main character. It's an Australian film. Stacy Keach is in it. What's her name? Jamie Lee Curtis is also in it, but don't go into it expecting a lot of her. Otherwise, you're going to be disappointed. She doesn't show up for a while, and then she disappears again for a while and shows up again.
Man, you know what? It's so funny, too, because Escape from L.A., that's Stacy Keach in that as well.
Yes, right. He's basically playing, what's his face? His character, the same version of Lee Van Cleef. He's the Lee Van Cleef of the movie.
Lee Van Cleef's character. Yeah, Lee Van Cleef's. Oh, I just forget that's Lee Van Cleef in the
That's
original.
him in the first one. Yes, it is.
Yeah.
So, Road Games is take Steven Spielberg's Duel and invert it, where the guy in the truck is the good guy and the guy in the car is the bad guy, and throw in, people say Hitchcock's Rear Window, and they're sort of right, but it's different, but yeah, it's the same thing. The whole premise, this whole thing, and this is also a movie that's almost entirely on the road, because Stacy Keach is a truck driver in Australia. And most of the movie is him driving pig meat from one place in the country to, I think it's from Melbourne to Perth. I think that's where he's going. So actually you see a lot of non-desert Australia in this. You see some of the outback as well, but you get a lot of greenery and city, so it's also unusual in that way. I mean, I tend to prefer the Mad Max version of Australia, but I know it's not all like that. And you get to see other Australia where it's not just, bull roars and somebody trying to squeeze water out of a stone. And so movie starts out, he's a truck driver, and he pulls up to and man, he's so likable so quickly. You should watch this movie if you've never seen it. You would love this character. He's like Indiana Jones of the road. He's just laid back. He keeps quoting poetry. He's just like, I don't even know how to describe how cool he is in this very imaginary, like idealized trucker kind of way. Like a guy that you would just sit down there, man, you're having a drink and he's next to you and he regales you with tales of the road and then throws in a little Robert Blake to tell you what it's like to be out there in the middle of the night among the forest and the creatures and the beauty and majesty of solitude when you know that at the end of your journey you shall be among people. Like he's spouting all this poetry. It's great. Constantly. And he's got a dingo. Not a dog, but a dingo. Or what he thinks is a dingo. That's the big joke of the film. So he's got this dingo and people keep asking, is that your dog? He's like, no, it's not a dog. It's a dingo. They don't bark. That's the difference. Because dingoes don't bark. Just generally, they usually whimper or whine. They do not traditionally bark. So there's actually a lot of this. I've looked this up. There's a debate on whether they're actually dogs or not because they don't do a lot of canine behavior. But he's got this dingo with him, and he's constantly talking to him, which of course is exactly what I'd be doing if I was a truck driver. I'd have a dog. I'd be talking to the dog all the time. All this back and forth dialogue with the dog. And he pulls up to a place, and he's about to check into this hotel when he sees a guy with what he believes is a prostitute come in and gets the last room. And so he has to sleep in his truck. And the next day he wakes up and he lets the dingo out to go to the bathroom. And the dingo keeps chewing at this piece of a garbage bag that's out there. And he looks up and he notices that the guy who checked into the room keeps looking down and he's wearing gloves. And he's like, why would a guy be so interested in the garbage men picking things up so early in the, like the reason he woke up is because the garbage truck was coming. But he's like, why is this guy so interested in the garbage? And he doesn't really think too much of it, and then they get back on the road. And then he has to pick up a load of pig meat. So his truck is loaded with slaughtered pigs, like skinned pigs. Not even skinned, just gutted. And so he's driving along, and he hears a news report that there's been a series of killings, that young women are being dismembered, and he kind of hears it and doesn't really pay attention to it. And then there's a woman that's trying to hitchhike, and she puts stuff across the road so he has to stop his truck because he's not picking up hitchhikers. He passes a couple and he says, nope, can't pick up hitchhikers against regulations. But then this woman kind of strung paper across the road, so he slams on the brakes, and then she just opens the door and gets in. And he's like, what the hell are you doing? And she's like, he's like, I don't pick up hitchhikers. He's like, I'm not a hitchhiker. It's just that my husband, my car broke down and my husband's got to pick me up. He's going to meet me in the city. Just drive me up there. And so he's going along. And, he's odd, charming, but odd. And so there's something and then he notices that the same van that was in the hotel he sees it at one point behind him and he passes it. And he kind of looks at it and he's like, it's the same van. But he doesn't really think too much of it yet. And then they're playing that I Spy game where you have to talk about the stuff you saw on the road. And the woman says, it's an animal, and he's like naming all this stuff and finally runs out. He's like, well, there's no animals left. I mean, unless you're talking about the dingo. She's like, no, it's not inside the cab. He's like, well, what do you mean it's not inside the cab? We haven't seen anything. And she says, yes, we did. There was a man back there digging a hole with a green van, and he stops the fucking thing. And he's like, he was digging a hole. And so he jumps out and he's looking at him, and then he sees the guy look back at him, and he's got these long garbage bags, and he throws them in the van and takes off. And the woman's like, what are you so interested in him for? And he starts asking her stuff. And then she starts to think he might be the serial killer because he's asking all these questions about the killings and do the cops know who it is? Do they have an idea of who's? And so she takes off, and he chases after her, and he's like, "Lady, I'm not trying to hurt you." And she's like, "Just let me off the next station. Don't hurt me." He's like, "I'm not going to hurt you. Get in the thing. We'll go to the next gas station. I'll call the cops because I think that guy might be the guy. I saw him at a hotel. Now he's burying something in the middle of nowhere. Why would he bury something in the middle of nowhere?" And she says, "Well, maybe he's camping and he's." He had to go to the bathroom. He was digging a hole. And he's like, I don't think so. So he gets to this bar, and the lady gets out, and there's a guy with a motorcycle there with a red leathers, which I thought, okay, that's going to come up later, which it does. And he tries to call the cops, but it's too loud, and there's also a strike going on. So I think him being a trucker, he's kind of breaking the strike for the Australians, and he's not Australian. So they're starting to kind of mildly threaten him. And then he finds out that they hit his dog, But then he finds out it wasn't actually them, because dingoes are apparently it's legal to hunt them in Australia. I didn't know that. Or maybe it was at that time. You're not supposed to have them, that they were some kind of menace. So whether that's still the case or not, I don't know. And then he realizes that he saw the green van take off right when he came out, and the guy in the van was trying to attack his dog, and he thinks the dog scared him off. So now he takes off after the guy because the guy's fucking with his dog, which I'm like, I am on fucking board with this movie all the way, man. This is great. So he's going along, and then he sees Jamie Lee Curtis, and he says, what do you think? Should we, because I think the idea is supposed to be that he either passed her 3 times or passed 2 other hitchhikers, but now that he thinks there's a serial killer loose, he doesn't want to take a chance that she might get picked up by that guy. So he says, all right, I'll let her in. And that's Jamie Lee Curtis. And they're sitting there and they're talking back and forth. And, there's this whole thing where their dialogue is great. I don't remember it offhand, but there's great dialogue in this movie, especially between the two of them, where they're kind of, and then he's talking about his theory about the serial killer. And she's like, interesting. Well, why do you think he does it? He's like, I don't know. Who gives a shit why he does it? We just know that he does it. And she's like, no, it matters. Does he hate women? Is it a sex thing? What is it? He's like, I don't know. I just know that there's this weird fucking guy, and I keep seeing him, and he's doing weird shit, and I think he's the guy. And so then they stop at a gas station to get gas. And as they're fueling up, Jamie Lee Curtis, he's working on the truck, and Jamie Lee Curtis sees the van. And she goes over and gets it. She says, the fucking van's here. And she looks, and she doesn't see anybody in it. And Stacy Keach says, wait, let me check the bathroom. He picks up like a cooling fan off a motor, checks the bathroom, and sees somebody's in there. And he mouths to her, he's in the bathroom. I'll keep an eye on it. Check the van. And so she goes in the van, she's looking through it. And the whole time you've seen this cooler sitting on the passenger seat. And so she's going to look for it. And when she's crawling back there, she looks down and there's a guy in a sleeping bag, and it's the guy. Meanwhile, Stacy Keach doesn't see this. So he goes in the bathroom with the dingo and he's like, all right, motherfucker, come on out here because I'm going to let my dog tear your balls off. And the door opens up and out comes the red leather motorcycle guy. And he's like, man, I don't know what you're talking about. He's like, oh shit, you're not the guy I was thinking of. And he's like, oh fuck. And he runs out. And of course the van's gone. So van's gone. Jamie Lee Curtis is gone. So he goes to steal the guy's motorcycle because his truck's hood is up. And he tries to tear after him. He wipes out on the motorcycle. So then he basically ratchets down his hood while he's threatening everybody with the fucking dingo. He's like, back off, back off. And then he gets in the truck and he tears out after him. Right? So he catches up to him and he sees the guy, he sees the van, and he sees Jamie Lee Curtis talking to him. And he's like, wait a minute, she doesn't look like she's kidnapped. She's just kind of sitting there. Maybe I've got this wrong. Maybe she and he, maybe she decided to go ride with him. So am I completely wrong about this? You know what? Fuck it. If she's not even going to make an effort she sees me back here and she clearly isn't in distress. You know what? Let him have her. I don't care. And he just keeps going along. Right. So where does he end up? Oh, he has to get weighed. So he stops at a weighing station. Now it's night. Stops at a weighing station. He sees the fucking green van. And he sees the cops go up to it, and he's watching it while the guy's talking to him who's doing the weighing stuff. And the guy's like, you're a little bit heavier than you should be. He's like, yeah, whatever, I'm watching this. And he's looking at it, and then the guy says, oh, you got a bunch of shit wrapped around your wheels or something like that. And that's because there was this whole back and forth where there was a guy with a boat. This is almost like a comedy scene, so I'm not going to cover it much. But he basically drives through a guy's boat because the guy with the boat is an asshole and is trying to block him from passing. And then he just drives through the guy's fucking boat. So the shit's all caught up on his wheels. But he's watching, and then he realizes that the cops are helping the guy move his van, like it's having problems getting started. And he's like, okay, you know what? Obviously I'm wrong. They would have found something. So he gets back in the car. And then he's driving along and he hears this noise and he realizes that his back door is open. And he goes and he looks.
Oh, no.
And he counts.
Oh, no.
And he notices that there's 2 things on hooks that he doesn't remember loading. And you see him kind of look at it and he goes, you know what? Maybe I just miscounted. So he gets back in the truck and he starts driving it and then he pulls off into a rest area and he notices that the green van is there. So he goes up to the green van. I'm sorry, this happened before that. He finds the green van and he busts the window open, looks inside the cooler, and it's just food. It's like a lunch. And that's when he takes off, and that's when the guy must have opened his thing. But he doesn't know that at this point, or at least he's just trying to not think that's what it is. So finally we come to the end of the movie, and he finds the guy again, and he starts chasing him. And the cops now are after him because what he doesn't know is that the guy used his name to check into the hotel where the girl was murdered. So because the one woman said that he thinks that he's the killer, the one that he gave the lift to, and the fact that he's doing all kinds of wacky shit like at the gas station where he tried to steal the guy's bike, and because the girl he was traveling with is missing, the cops think it's him. So basically he's chasing the van because he finds him again, and the cops are chasing him, and they end up in this alley, and they're kind of all rammed in there, and they're kind of like jammed, and they're stuck. And there's a point where the van stops, and the guy gets out of it, and he's got a shovel, and he starts like busting stuff, and he starts wailing on the car. And Stacy Keach is like, okay, fuck it, I'll just drive over you then. And he tries to drive, and the guy's like, oh shit, and gets in his van. And the van won't start. Stacy Keach is stuck because his trailer's stuck. There's a cop under the trailer trying to get to the front because it's too tight. At which point the hitch breaks, or comes apart. So the trailer sits there, and Stacy Keach's truck jumps forward and wheelies and slams down on top of the van. So then he manages to get out. He gets out, and he corners the guy, and he starts to choke him to death, at which point the cops pull him off and arrest him because he's wailing on this guy, and they think he's the killer. He's like, it's not me, it's him, and the guy is getting away. And the cops are like, yeah. Where's the girl you were traveling with? He's like, I don't know, she's with him. And he's like, check the fucking van. And so they go in the van, and they find that Jamie Lee Curtis is in the sleeping bag tied up, and they get her out. And she's standing there, and they pull the tape off her mouth, and she says, is this the guy who was trying to kill you? And she's like, fuck no, it's that guy, you morons. It's the guy with the gloves. And so they get him, and they arrest him. And that's the end of the movie, is that they get the right guy, and that he and Jamie Lee Curtis are like, he's free of suspicion, and she's not dead. And the movie ends. It's a fucking blast. Yeah, like another movie where it's got like because I was like, oh no, this is going to end with them arresting him. The movie is going to end with that guy getting away, because that would have been
that would have been the bummer ending, right?
That's where it seemed to be going, because what I thought they were going to do was not find a body, but there is kind of a coda to it, which is he delivers the meat, and they empty it out, and he leaves with his truck, and the trailer's there. And there's a woman, and you see them butchering it to start to send out to places. And there's a cleaning woman in the and the way the killer killed people was with a piano wire, or a guitar string wire, because he has a guitar. And so he would garrote them. And so the cleaning woman's scrubbing the floor, and she has a bucket next to her with the cleaning solution, and she bumps her head against something, and she sees it's a string, and she pulls it, and a severed head falls out of the ceiling and falls into the bucket. And then the movie ends, which is because he had cut the head off and then strung it up with the guitar wire. And that's the end of the movie. So that's kind of like, type of, ending. But, whatever. And that's the movie. It's a fucking great movie.
It's the stinger.
Yeah, it's the stinger. It's a great movie. I can't believe I've never seen this before. I mean, this movie I'm sure is out somewhere. I'm going to buy it. Stacy Keach is so good.
I love Stacy Keach, but I hadn't even heard of this movie.
This will be a top 5 Stacy Keach movie, because so much of this movie is just him and the dog, and so it's him monologuing as if it's dialogue with the dog. And then him and Jamie Lee Curtis, the little bit that they're in it together in the middle, is really, really good, because, she's basically attracted to him, and there's a point where, she says something to him, and he says, how old are you? And she's like, old enough. How old are you? And he's like, too old for you. And then there's a thing where she's starting to kind of get close to him, and he's starting to give into it, and then he kind of pulls himself back. So I was like, good, because she's supposed to be much younger than him. So, even though they sort of maybe are getting together at the end, but you're not really sure. I like that. Their relationship is good, because they have these kind of back and forths that are really, really clever and interesting. There's really good dialogue. Even his scenes alone are funny. You're watching it for him. So if you hate him, don't watch it, because he's the whole movie. But great movie. Just a fucking blast.
Stacy Keach is a Kurt Russell type.
He is, and
he's very sort of everyman type guy.
This could easily have been a Kurt Russell movie. If this was an American film, this would easily be a Kurt Russell type of film. You know what he is? He's like a Jack Burton, but less of a buffoon. He's actually not played as the joke sidekick, because there is no sidekick except the dog, and the dog, of course, can't do much. So yeah, this is a Jack Burton, actually, because he is a truck driver. This is a Jack Burton if he's very, book smart and worldly and almost like a bohemian poet underneath the fact that he's just a working class blue collar truck driver. In fact, he keeps correcting people and saying, I'm not a truck driver. I just drive trucks. Like shit like that, he says, where it's like, okay, you understand the character so well in his interactions with people and this mental image he's got of himself. It's great. It's just a great movie. And you can watch it for free all over the place. So there's no excuse not to watch it. Unless, again, you hate Stacy Keach. That's about the only reason not to. Or not even Jamie Lee Curtis. She's barely in it. So
I'm just curious. What would your top 5 Stacy Keach be? Because I haven't seen... Like, Stacy Keach is one of those actors. He's in a lot of random movies. But, like, I wouldn't even say I have a top 5 for him. So just out of curiosity.
Well, I don't know that I've seen him in anything else where he's a lead like this. Yeah, so yeah. That's what I'm trying to look back and see if there's anything that I'm not thinking of, because I've always seen him in secondary roles. So, I mean, Escape from LA would have been one of the first things I said because he's in it. But he's not. I don't know that I've ever seen him in another. I think I have a feeling he was Mike Hammer. That's right. He was on TV. He was Mike Hammer. He was good in that, but that's TV. That's not movies. But I don't think I've seen him. I'm looking and I don't see anything else that I remember him being, class of 1999. He was not a lead. Yeah, he played a lot of Mike Hammer. Yeah, Road Games. I don't see anything else. There's nothing else that I'm seeing that I know him from as a lead. Nothing.
Yeah. I'm going to go looking at some point and see if I can't find any.
Well, this is a great movie that he anchors.
Sounds like an awesome movie, yeah.
It is. It's you would appreciate it a lot for the writing of it. Like, the dialogue is excellent. And the fact that he's basically doing so much of it alone, and it's great. A lot of great character moments.
Oh, yeah, and the director, by the way, of this has kind of an interesting career. So the guy who directed this, Richard Franklin, if you look at him, he's got this weird career. So he directed Psycho 2, right?
This is what got him Psycho 2. I did read that.
Yeah, he also did Cloak and Dagger, which is one of my favorite like kids movies.
Vinegar Syndrome recently released a great edition of that. Just an FYI for people.
Yeah, he directed episodes of Beauty and the Beast. He did the movie FX2, which
I love the FX movies.
Yeah, right. FX2 was really good because it kind of took it a step further.
Yep.
And then he did the Beastmaster series. Oh wait, no, he did Beastmaster. No, he directed the Beastmaster series. And it's this weird. It's like this weird shit. Like there's some really interesting gems in here. You know what I mean? Like nothing otherworldly, but like Cloak and Dagger, FX2. Those are both really good movies. Yeah, he did Beauty and the Beast series. Like I remember all these.
Yep.
So it is an interesting career. To go from
Yeah,
anyway.
Like I said, not only is it a really good movie, but it's a really good movie you can watch for free. So a movie like this is an undiscovered gem. Like, this is a movie I'm really sorry I didn't see before, because it was excellent. It's simple. It's it's really a very small cast, because essentially it's even the killer. You barely even see him you see him from a distance a lot of times. But that was, the green van shows up, and I skipped some stuff because there's parts where the green van shows up and then it's fucking with him, and he's still not convinced at that point. And then there is a point where he thinks that he's just generated all this because he's been on the road and he's tired. He's like, you know what? I'm making this out of nothing. This is what happens when you've been on the road for too long and you haven't gotten a good night's sleep. I'm making myself paranoid over nothing. This is coincidence. And then he ends up being right. So, like I said.
Yeah, but you know what? But this is like a genre almost of like the paranoia thriller movie.
Sure. Oh, absolutely.
Where the hero doesn't know if he's being crazy or not,
Yeah. But normally, the way it's handled in this is a little different from usual. But yes, you're right. It is a standard kind of thing where somebody suspects, then thinks they're wrong.
I'm not saying that as a bad thing, mind you.
No, but usually when they play that up, usually it's at the very end, right before the killer springs on them. They're like, "Oh, I was wrong. It was innocent." And then there's suddenly a jump scare, and the guy jumps out of a closet. He's like, "No, I killed them all and skinned them and fucked their heads," and then goes crazy. This is, this is more of a thing where it is played, and there is doubt. I mean, it's not. You never see the killer do anything. The only giveaway is the gloves, which I don't think you see in the middle of the movie. So you see him kill the first woman with a pair of gloves. You see the glove when the window is open, but you don't see his face really. And then when he's spotting him, I don't remember if you see the gloves. You may, but I don't remember. It really doesn't matter though, because honestly, this movie is less about the mystery. It's really about Stacy Keach and how awesome his character is. That's really what it is. And this is a movie where if it was a different actor who wasn't as good in the role, it would likely still be a good movie, but this makes it, he makes it better. Yeah, they picked the right guy and he played it the right way. So, and it's an original story. This is something where it's not based on a book or anything. This was just a story that was conjured for the film. Excellent. Again, some of the writing with the dialogue is just stellar. So, no real excuse not to watch it because it's free. So, and on that note, we have given I don't think, have we done any? No, everything was a recommendation of some stripe. Right? Yeah.
Of some kind.
Yeah. If you want some comics porn, we covered that up front. If you want a good kids movie that's not a garbage film to watch as an adult, you got that.
Hey, listen, I think it's hilarious that package was all put together there.
Yeah. So we did it all this time, baby. This is the perfect show. You got it all in just a little over 2 hours. So on that note, go watch or look at something, whatever floats your boat, and we will talk to you again next week. Visit OzoneNightmare.com to subscribe to new episodes, browse through our back catalog, or to find links to support the show. Follow @OzoneNightmare on Twitter for the latest episode postings and other show information. If 280 characters just isn't enough, you can always email us, theozonenightmare@gmail.com. The opening theme for the show is provided by Heartbeat Hero. The closing theme is provided by Ogre. Please visit and support these artists using the links in the show notes for each episode.